Anyway. And welcome to the Redeye stream. Chaos in Seattle, chaos in Portland. We're also going to talk a little bit about movies, but we got to open with the news. In Seattle, they have occupied about 6 blocks, give or take. They believe that they set up their own country, but they're still using American money, of course. Oh, and defund the police, but now they have a warlord that is now acting as the police. Amazing. I'm really confused on how quickly this has escalated to where they're the oppressed and now they're the oppressors in this 6-block radius. They are going around acting like the mafia and extorting business owners. Getting protection money, Doku.
Yeah. I can only go off of what I've seen through video and then some brief interactions I've had on Twitter. So I've heard conflicting information. Apparently this SoundCloud rapper, the dude Raz, apparently he declared himself he declared himself as being king of the castle, the
HNIC. Yeah, the HNIC of the whole demilitarized zone, basically.
Yeah, well, from the interactions I've had with some people who are actually part of the Chaz, which is the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, a lot of them actually don't recognize him or his authority. So it's difficult to tell what's really going on here. Like, half of them do, the other half don't. This one guy was saying, nah, we're not frisking anyone. The businesses have been cooperative with us. Some of the food is bought. Some of it's donated. Come hang out. You get free food. Like, you know how like when your neighbor says, hey, come help me move and I'll buy you beer and pizza?
Doku, I got to stop you. There. They were giving away free food. And you know why that's a bad idea? Because now they're out of fucking food, other than some ice cream some old lady brought yesterday.
That's not as fun as the garden that they're actually trying to fucking plant. I saw a post on Twitter where a person's actually a gardener and explained every single thing in a multi-tweet of what they've done wrong. And all I said is, I love this shit. This is great, and gave it a thumbs up with the Joey and Chandler from Friends, because living in Iowa, if you have to know how to do one of 3 things mainly. You have to know how to either work in a factory, be a farmer, or run a convenience store or a store of some type that sells goods. And oftentimes we will, and obviously we fish around here and hunt, but you've got to be able to know how to deal with those people that can do that, or do it yourself and then sell it yourself. So these guys basically taking 6 blocks, making it a demilitarized zone, and not having any resources, claiming that they're independent of the United States, have basically stepped on a landmine, saying that the government itself, again, this is a local government, state government before it is a federal thing, and we know local and federal aren't going to do shit. They can basically cordon off the 6-block area, shut off that power grid, and they can basically go in and black ops the entire group, because they've officially become an insurgency, and kill them all if they basically surrender their citizenry of the United States. That's the end of the story for that. But they're too stupid to figure out how to exist without the things that they're fighting for, because their mommy and daddies are failures.
Well, that's the thing. I actually pointed out to this guy who was talking, and from what he was saying, like, he's part of the group. And obviously I used a Twitter hashtag, so I'm assuming that's how he found me. But the point I brought up to him is, like, look, without the outside support or their donations or the food that you guys actually bought and paid for, it's not a sustainable thing. And this person actually agreed with me. And they're like, yeah, no, the majority of us don't think it's sustainable. It's their idea of trying to make a stink and make a big protest and get on the national stage. But from what I can tell, the majority of these people are well aware that this is not something that's going to be permanent or sustainable, and it'll collapse under its own weight given enough time. I mean, they're trying to grow potatoes with cardboard and soil put on top of it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Doko. Do you think they're committing suicide? I'm not talking political. I mean, genuinely, they're acting as if their beliefs and their faith in this system would sustain them, but they're actually committing physical suicide.
From the interactions I've had, I don't think so, simply for one reason. I don't think any of them expect this to go anywhere. Like when Dodge says they're LARPing, I think they're doing it to make a statement. I don't think they've even thought through how severe the potential repercussions of this could actually be if, someone like Raz or Rez or whatever the hell his fucking name is, the SoundCloud rapper who thinks he's a warlord. If people like that decide to go forward with it and keep this going like it's a real thing, yeah, you might see the state police and the National Guard on your doorstep in the next couple of days. But I don't think that's the majority of people. I think they're just showing up to make a statement, and that's it. They'll go home in a day or two.
Sorry, Doku, but I swear I saw this on an episode of Family Guy.
Well, yeah, it was Pretoria, and that was because, in that instance, it was because the city the city screwed around on the markings of the property lines, and then then Peter realized that, hey, we're not even technically on the map, so then we can declare ourselves a sovereign nation, and look how that turned out. I'm sorry that these people think that they're, this is basically bullshit grandstanding. Styx, Hex, and Hammer called it out for what it is. That it's because it's election time. They think that and I'm not mocking George Floyd dying. The whole thing was a goddamn mess. But they're basically blowing out of proportions. And as I've said multiple times in tweets across, because you guys know I clean my tweets out occasionally because I treat them like text messages. I said, this isn't the 1960s. You have nothing to actually fight for. Now, does police brutality exist? Absolutely. And this isn't a political thing. This is a real world thing because we've all seen one form or another, justified or not, whatever. But doing this is not helping anything. And Black Lives Matter, Al Sharpton, and all those fuckers are basically playing a role of stealing your money. They're con men. It's essential to what Ozzy Osbourne was singing about, calling the bullshit out from Jimmy Swaggart and the religious authority of the 1980s. They're trying to be miracle men, and they're basically con artists, and they're getting that money because as soon as the money stops, Al Sharpton and all those and Black Lives Matter, they'll fucking go away, because if they wanted to do anything, to get anything done, they would have done it right. They would have done it right the first time. And when George Floyd died, they would have basically said, hey, look, we're representatives of Black Lives Matter. We are here in an official capacity to basically say we need these charges brought up. And when the officers would have been convicted, or if they would have been convicted, they would have went and said, hey, that's it. That's akin to what the ACLU does. The ACLU, being the dangerous idiots that they are, and they are dangerous idiots and psychopaths, they will come up to you and say, we're suing you. And that's it. And they'll win, lose, draw. They have accomplished their mission by saying, we feel you've done something unjust, or it's unconstitutional, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. We're going to sue you and make you live with, the real pain of losing money. BLM and all those assholes, if they had any clout, any balls, any ovaries or whatever, they'd be akin to the same thing as the ACLU, but they're fucking posers. And I don't like swearing these days, but these guys, they're posers, and they're playing a game. And Styx, Hex, and Hammer called it, many, many times the past 4 years. This is a sham. This is a sham. Steven Crowder said, this is bull crap. This is bull crap. This. And the patterns are there and it was George Floyd's funeral being televised, that they're basically pulling this guy up. They're playing a game thinking it's this, the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s never freaking happened. Well, I'm sorry, but I guess Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and even JFK, who were all for the Civil Rights Act, which were desperately needed back then because people were not being treated fairly. Hell, we didn't even barely have Miranda rights back then for anybody across the board, let alone regardless of your skin tone. This ain't that, buddy. They're doing this because social media exists and they are fucking crybabies.
Well, and it gets a lot worse than that. Okay. And I know this doesn't have much to do with Seattle, but when it comes to the Black Lives Matter protest and how it's expanding, okay, you want to rip down the Confederate monuments all across the South.
Mad Dodge, it does. What they're doing has very much to do with Seattle and Portland. It very much has to do with that because it's all the same part of a hydra. And the problem is,
let's be very clear. Let's be very clear about one thing. Black Lives Matter, along with Antifa, despite what they might tell you, they are not a grassroots movement. They are organized. They are funded. if you need any proof of this, you can go look at any of the Black Lives Matter donation pages. It takes you to an organization that's called Act Blue. It's an exclusively Democrat organization where they collect money from charity and they fund. And the other group that you can go and check this. You can go to influencewatch.org. Look up the Open Societies Foundation. That's George Soros's foundation. Just this, I think it was 2018, they donated $33 million to Black Lives Matter and affiliated organizations. They are a funded, organized group. They're not a grassroots movement.
And that's a huge tax write-off for both of those organizations. Here's where I have an attitude problem with everything. Anybody thinking that their grassroots is not only severely diluted and stupid, they haven't been paying attention to this shit since President Trump was elected. Mainly because up in Davenport, we had a real protest. We had people protesting. They weren't becoming violent rioters until they got really fucking stupid. Okay? And a girl who was a protester who was doing it right, named Italia Marie Kelly, because I was 5 blocks away from this shit, visiting my daughter's girlfriend. And we were all up there. We were having dinner and everything, and we heard about this shit. They killed her and her friend because some reason, they've never given the details, but she was there, according to news sources, actually peaceably protesting it, and everybody else went fucking full retard. She was a 22-year-old kid, and it breaks my heart as a man who has children her age. Because
that's the thing. A lot of these protests do get hijacked by agitators who are, they're there for a reason. They're either paid or they're organized or for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. But they do see these types of protests, these types of situations, and because they're funded by grifters and political opportunists, they have a vested interest in escalating the situation, either to A, push a political agenda, or B, there is some type of profit in it. And they see that.
I believe in in regards to the Davenport one, it was not, it was nobody kicking in money. It was simply, if you've ever lived in the Quad Cities, the ratio of blacks, Latinos, whites, and Asians is skewed across the board. There's a lot more black folk up here, and it really comes down to classism as opposed to racism. And what happens in the Quad Cities happens in Chicago and the big cities. Certain skin-toned people are reduced to basically essentially second-class citizens on a certain level, financially mostly, and it becomes classism. And what happened is, I genuinely believe in the Davenport problem, which we had retards. We had chest-smacking retards, as Razorfist would say, that got stupid. And it's the same as 3 factors. One is they've tried to coop us in. Thank Christ I live in Iowa, because our governor actually didn't have her head up her ass. They didn't pull 99% of the shit other states have pulled in regards to the Kung Flu fever, the Wuhan flu, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it was also a hot day. It was, we're sick and tired of this negativity. It's like in I'm going to make the analogy of Ghostbusters, the river of slime, how negative things make things go negative, and so on and so forth. That's the analogy I can make, because it's true. We didn't have people bringing, like in other areas, we're putting a truckload of bricks here or a pallet of bricks there. We didn't have that problem. And 27 miles south in the Han industry area, in a small town which will remain nameless, they were putting on Facebook, we're going to go down to this town, we're going to start this shit. And I saw across the board from my relatives in that town, you're in the wrong area, because we are hunters, farmers. We have turkey farms, pig farms. We have West Liberty Foods. We have the Mississippi River and all these places where we can kill you, get away with it, and bury you, and you will never be found. And I guess they fucking changed their minds.
Well, I'm glad you actually brought up
that because of that idiocy, places like Menards and GameStop and all these other places in that small town, literally, I guess if you, maybe one of you two gentlemen can help me out here. What do they call the things that, how you can bring ports into docks, and then they have the barges have like the shipping containers. They look like shipping containers. Sorry, that's the word I was thinking of. They look like they had mini shipping containers blocking certain parts of the building to prevent collateral damage. wow, you just pissed the whole town of about 35,000 people off, saying that you're going to come to town and fuck with their jobs. Most of Iowa, we're a purple state. I don't care what anybody says, and that's fine. But when you say this shit on social media and you're dealing with generations of old school farmers and Republicans and old school liberals, like the people that actually believe in truth, justice, in the American way, like Superman does, you're going to get those people tell their kids and tell their grandkids, we're boarding shit up, arm yourselves. Anybody that doesn't look familiar, kill them all, let them God sort them out.
Well, yeah, you're announcing your presence and your intent, and that's going to result in people.
Real quick, sorry, I know you want to go, but I want to finish my point I had earlier. All right. They're expanding it further, though. Okay, they're yanking down monuments. Here soon, they're going to want to sandblast that mountain that they made a Confederate monument out of before they made Mount Rushmore. Mark my words, that's next. They want to tear down the Jefferson Memorial, probably the Lincoln Memorial. Why? I don't know. That's crazy. I thought he was on your side. It's worse than that, though. Xbox and all these other companies are caving to their demands. Now, if you say something that's considered racist while you're playing, Call of Duty, and you're like N-word or whatever, like a lot of gamers do. I mean, look at PewDiePie. They're gonna ban you. They're gonna kick you off. They're gonna take your Xbox.
That's the thing. Sticks, Hex, and Hammer was pointing out is that corporations do this because they're playing a game and they want the money from the stupid people. This has always been the case. This is just this isn't anything special in regards to the corporations. They're doing it to get that fat cash. That's the only reason why they'll do it. That was my only point.
Before we segue out of this, I did want to touch on something you brought up in regards to classism. And this annoys me. I know Vincent James has brought this up many times. But if you go ahead and you actually look, I believe it's the Justice Department statistics. It's not the FBI website. I think it is the DOJ website. But you can go through and you can look at the statistics of violent crime that results in police shooting, and you can adjust it for the amount of crimes committed by demographics. And it's actually pretty even between white, black, Hispanic, and white non-Hispanic. It actually falls in line. And if you break it down even further, it also falls much more directly in line with what the household income of black, white, or Hispanic actually are. So it really isn't a racial issue when it comes to police brutality and violent crime. It very much is a class issue. But no one wants to bring up those statistics because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Well, and it's also spread to YouTube. There's a channel that I was subscribed to until yesterday. And they are supposed to talk about like Vampire the Masquerade shit. And I click on their new video. There in the corner is help support the movement to fight injustice. Donate to Black Lives Matter. The guy that runs this channel lives in like Sweden or some shit. What do you know about American politics? And you're not even a political channel. I hit the unsubscribe button.
Well, the thing is to point out there as well, when you go to donate to Black Lives Matter, as I had mentioned previously, it goes to an organization called Act Blue. Well, if the donation isn't claimed, Act Blue claims the donation, and then they can choose to allocate the money in whatever way they see fit. So even if you donate to Black Lives Matter, unless you explicitly follow through, essentially Act Blue can take the money and donate it to whoever they want. And you don't really have a say-so about it. So again, it's all a grifting campaign. It's either about profit or pushing a political message.
It's all a fucking scam. It's a scam. And Al Sharpton is the figurehead of this Hydra. I mean, Jesus, Judas freaking Priest. If I was the head of the IRS, I'd be looking at him and everybody else very closely. Essentially, and I don't necessarily agree with your choice to unsubscribe from a channel, Mad Dodge. Not because I'm telling you what to do. It's just I think sooner or later they'll get their heads out of their asses, and you might, because I've just been muting the shit out of people. I've put certain words into it will never show on my timeline on Twitter or Gab or anything else. And anybody that's pulling this, support Black Lives Matter, I mute them. I just don't pay attention to them. I don't give them any credit. I don't even watch their videos. They get nothing from me. So I do what I believe is best for me. I'm sure you're doing what you believe is best for you. I would just suggest that, keep tabs on that channel. Maybe they'll fucking grow up, because there's nothing more infuriating than people from other nations who can't even fix their own problems trying to fix ours, and vice versa. We don't really need to be sticking our noses into anybody else's problems. We can't even fix our own.
Dade, it's worse than that, because I had joined the server to meet other role players, right?
Yeah.
Because it's no secret we play Vampire the Masquerade on this channel. And in the server rules were don't bring up politics at all. And he's bringing up politics on his channel. It's like, you hypocrite.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's his channel, and he's not going to change his mind, and you're not going to change his mind. So, either, again, mute the stuff and let it go, or leave, which it seems like you've done that, and just move on with your life. You got too much shit to deal with, buddy. And this guy's never, if he figures it out, great. If he doesn't, that's on him. You don't need to lose any more sleep at night than you already do as the average human being.
Well, back on the rails real quick in regards to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, I just have to point out the irony of the situation. The groups that are supporting this whole thing are the same ones that are saying the police department and the government is beyond reform. We want to abolish it. We want anarchy. We want this. We want that. And as I've said many times on this channel and others, when you present a situation in any type of society, I don't care if it's the Amazon rainforest tribes, a tribe in Papua New Guinea, or a small commune somewhere in the middle of, I don't know, bumfuck nowhere or Alaska, you do inevitably end up with a hierarchy. There is a power structure that will form because as human beings, we're pat creatures. You can't have this idea of pure anarchy without some sort of, even the standard family unit, there is a power structure. Somebody is charged with, protecting the family unit. Someone's charged with gathering food and cooking food. Someone's charged with taking care of the kids. You end up with this hierarchy, this power structure that will inevitably evolve out of what these people consider to be a free and fair pseudo-anarchistic system. Whether it's communist or capitalist, that power structure will emerge. And what happened with the autonomous zone? You have one dude and maybe a handful of people that actually believe in this that are now creating that said power structure. So you just replaced one with another. Like, good job, guys. You created the very thing that you claim to be against.
Well, that or they've become an oligarchy.
Either way, you're inevitably going to end up with a power structure. And how do you enforce those laws? Through force. We've seen pictures of people with firearms. Apparently, they're checking people to make sure weapons don't come in. They're not allowing the police to come in. Well, congratulations. You replaced one power structure with another power structure. That is ironically more lawless and a little less accountable than the power structure you just replaced, which is going to make situations worse. This is why we call it the regressive.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, it's spreading. In Portland, they were grabbing perimeter fences and moving them to try and corner off their own section of Portland. The mayor of Portland usually calls out Portland Police Department, and they put a stop to shit like this. We have seen that numerous times when it comes to Antifa in Portland. Why are they not this time around? The governor is holding the mayor back, perhaps?
I actually have a theory on this one, and it goes back to the riots in general. And again, this is just a theory, so YouTube, don't take it too seriously. It's just a theory. Let me keep my tinfoil hat for a second. Don't get your panties in a wad. No, I think the primary goal of a lot of these mayors and governors is if they're not going to enforce and they're going to allow the situation to escalate in the way that it has, it's one of two things is going to happen. Either A, they can go ahead and do what they wanted to do with COVID and push vote by mail. And eventually, when they decided that it's gone far enough, it allows them to consolidate their local power and exercise more force so that now they have control over the situation. Or B, they can force our troll in chief to essentially declare martial law, then they can point and look at him and say, oh, look, he's using the American military against the American people. He's acting like a dictator, and that's going to hurt him in the upcoming election. Either way, for them, in their minds, I believe they think it's a win-win situation. What I don't think they realize is that the majority of Americans actually don't support anarchy or Marxism, and most people in these communities don't like their local businesses getting burned down, the same way they don't like being sheltered in place by force.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I would do in Seattle. The police roll up in force. You have 24 hours to disperse. If you are not, we will come with even more force tomorrow at this time. On a bullhorn, all business owners and residents, it is suggested you evacuate right now. We will put you up in hotels if you have nowhere to go. Leave. Yep. It's going to get ugly tomorrow. And then you show up
protesters
early the next day.
Yeah, protesters cease and desist and vacate the premises. All local residents either stay at home or locate to a different area. At this time tomorrow, we're coming in. Anybody that is not abiding by these orders will be arrested. Force will be used if necessary.
Oh, and yeah, and first off, you give them a time and you show up early, okay? And second, right after you make that announcement, the power gets cut to that whole section immediately. And water. All city utilities cut immediately.
And the thing is, that's a dangerous situation as well, because for the local businesses and local residents, the taxpayers that are actually in that area, it's a really bad idea to cut off public utilities for those people. So that's one hell of a tightrope to walk. I understand, like, if you can't get them to vacate, yeah, you might have to go to those extremes, but I would say that's definitely an effort of last resort. All right.
If I was a business owner in that area and the police came with a bullhorn, even if I was a resident in an apartment and they're like, hey, evacuate now, we'll stay right here and make sure you get out safe and we'll put you up at a hotel, I'm going to the hotel. I don't want to stay around these crazy people.
Let's see, you also have to keep in mind a lot of people like that, a lot of them already don't trust the police. And you have to take into account things like, oh, maybe they have kids, maybe there's someone who's sick, maybe they do want to shelter in place, maybe they have pets and the hotel's not going to allow pets. I mean, there's a lot of logistical issues that come into it, which is why I say cutting off public utilities is a last resort effort. Now, if it comes to that, it comes to that. But I think you need to give the local residents and local businesses a little bit more of leeway than you do with the people that are just occupying the space simply because they want to prove a point, whatever that point might be. Vacate them using force if necessary. If that doesn't work, then go ahead and shut off public utilities.
Yeah, but Doku, they have designated this. They have put up fucking road signs and said this is a free zone. We no longer recognize your authority. Okay, we don't recognize your existence. No power, no water, nothing. No, and I hope it's 120 degrees in Seattle that fucking next day.
No, I saw that. And actually, I was kind of being tongue in cheek when I said this on Twitter earlier, but it is kind of a serious point. If they really do want to claim themselves to be an autonomous zone and they don't recognize the authority of the state, which, again, this sounds very statist of me, but it's kind of the catch-22 situation that we find ourselves in. Well, guess what? You're going to have two things that you're going to have to do before anything productive is going to come of this. We've already seen them put up barriers. We've already heard about potential armed guards frisking people, possibly extorting businesses. I can't say anything with any degree of certainty because I'm skeptical of sources regardless of what side of the coin it's on. But let's say they do go through with this. All right, well, there's two things you're going to have to do. The first is you're going to have to negotiate trade deals with the rest of the United States government. Otherwise, how are you going to get your food? And second, if the U.S. government does recognize you, well, you're going to have to set up an embassy and you're going to have to set up an ambassador. And I don't think you guys are self-sustainable. I don't think you realize exactly, to the people that are actually taking this seriously, I don't think you realize the position you're putting yourselves in. Because the other potential outcome is this. The US government doesn't recognize you as an independent autonomous zone, and they send in the military because, well, we know how the Civil War went. It didn't end well.
Well, no, and also you can see the comparisons here. All right, the Bundys in Oregon took and occupied a wildlife refuge that was actually shut down. They put nobody in danger other than themselves because one of them got shot and killed by the police later on during the standoff, right? And they were right-wing extremists who, by the way, won their case in Oregon. Eat that, leftists. But anyway, they're horrible. These guys, good to go. What?
And that's the other thing that we need to point out is this is public property. It's 6 city blocks. It's both public and private. It's not you occupying a commune somewhere or animal refugee or even private land. This is city property, and I do think that Patrol in Chief is actually playing this rather well by not jumping to conclusions and using the U.S. military or excessive force, because the state is going to have to do it. That's their responsibility.
It's local and state's responsibility. But the fact is, if these people are going to go around, start blackmailing, or basically going to the businesses and saying, pay us protection money, they're automatically in violation of the RICO Act, which the state and city have no choice but to be overridden by federal government. I mean, sadly, we're not going to clone Elliot Ness here anytime soon to take care of shit. But again, I had to go make a phone call. So if I missed anything, please let me know. But if I'm repeating anything, but once you start doing that Al Capone shit, that's why the RICO Act exists. And you're essentially fucked. Along with other things, you could get everything else dismissed, but that RICO Act is going to stick to you like fucking glue.
Well, and I do think that is part of the primary goal with why the states aren't acting so quickly, is I do think they want to force the federal government's hand because they can use it as political ammunition coming up here in November.
Doku, all I had to say is one simple thing. You know who's going to get stuck with the RICO charges? Mr. Warlord, dude.
I was going to say Raz. Well, yeah. That's the thing about the RICO Act is everybody that's in that 6-block radius occupying shit, they can all get stuck with RICO or accessories thereto as. And getting a RICO charge is harder to get rid of than a trespass charge, than a shoplifting charge. And shoplifting charges unfortunately stay with everybody for the rest of their lives, even though you may be in a position to where you've grown up or you've gotten a job and you don't have to depend on stealing to even survive. But not morals and ethics aside, that RICO charge ain't going nowhere. And if you're even associated with that, because it's a federal offense, you're done. And so these people, and I'm not playing both sides here. I genuinely believe there are people who think they're doing the right thing. They're screwing themselves over so hard, and they're not thinking about it because it's basically orange man bad. And and I'm like, you can't just do that shit.
Oh, two quick points here, Dave.
No, that was all I had to say.
Okay. First point, William Stenchever wanted to congratulate Dodge on his 10 viewers. We had 12 earlier, William. Where were you? And second point, yeah, we hit a total of 12, I think was the highest so far. Second point, more serious and back on topic. What a lot of these organizers probably don't realize is if those RICO charges stick to someone like Raz, who essentially can declare himself chief of the autonomous zone and essentially act like a warlord, all of these other groups that are organizing, those charges do extend. Like, that's the whole point of the RICO Act. So, Act Blue, Open Society Foundation, they might get looked into as a result of this as well.
Well, you're exactly right on that, because additionally, Raz, or whatever the fuck he wants to call himself, a Duke #1 King of New York bullshit, he can flip on a federal charge and stick it to everybody else and walk away with a reduced sentence, because that's what they would do if they had any competency about how to handle this in regards to you. If they were to ever file the RICO charge, They can say, yeah, we'll get Raz the Flip, and he'll start naming names, and he will get away barely scot-free, and they will never take any retaliation against him because he'll use his black privilege.
And again, that's my point. If that does happen, anyone associated with this particular situation going on, let's just say you're putting yourself in a very precarious situation. I hope you got some good lawyers.
Do they even need the RICO Act at this point? I believe President Trump already declared them a domestic terrorist organization.
No, that was Antifa. BLM is not declared a domestic terrorist organization, but they are organized and they do receive funding and support from groups like Media Matters, Open Society Foundation, and other affiliate groups. So
yeah, dipshits like the Young Turks of all things.
Yeah. So again, the spider web, if that does happen, could stretch very far and wide. So again, supporting these groups could potentially put yourself in a rather precarious situation. But we'll see if anything comes of it.
Yeah. Do I still sound okay?
Yeah, you're coming through good.
Okay, good. I'm just in a very relaxed position, and I don't want to have to, raise my voice. There was some problems going on, and my ear started ringing, so I had to put in an earplug. So I'm a little unbalanced from my end. So I'm hoping I'm not coming across as too loud or anything like that.
Oh, no, you're fine, dude.
But Dodge. Who do you think came up with the idea, hey, let's do what Occupy Wall Street did, but this time bring guns?
The same idiots, Black Lives Matter and Antifa. The same idiots.
And again, they're so loosely organized. It probably wasn't any one person that came up with an idea. It was probably more of a collect. Like I guarantee you, there's probably a private Facebook or a private Twitter group out there where they actually did organize this and pre-planned it beforehand.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things that, I've probably said this to you guys before. I don't think of stupid shit until you say something. It's like I never come up with the idea until you say, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing this?" No, but I will now.
And again, in this instant, it might have happened a little bit more organically. Like, I guess if we're really going to go down this rabbit hole, it's important to state this: groups like BLM and Antifa do loosely operate in cells. So, it might be a group of like 10 to 20 people that organize this stuff behind the scenes, and then they go to the people that support them, get them on their side, and then that 20 people turns into 100. That's how these things happen. So. It's not like there's one person pulling the strings. There's not necessarily a puppet master, but they get support from a lot of different people. And then, once those organizations give them their support, then something like this happens. You have a small group of people that are at the center of it. And it usually does start out where somebody pitches an idea. It's kind of like 4chan. They'll pitch an idea. Someone thinks it's a good idea. They run with it. Then they get support from whoever supports them. And then it balloons into what we're seeing now. And usually, more often than not, ends up collapsing under its own weight.
Well, unfortunately, unlike the last few times, it's social media has gone fucking completely mentally retarded more so. And with President Trump basically saying that Jack Dorsey and everybody else, either you either verify that you're a publisher or a printer. These social media sites don't give a shit, and they're letting people do whatever they want because they'll think of, well, not only can they not stop us, they can't do this. They genuinely believe, like if an act of God would have to happen for this to go down, but they would genuinely believe that any repercussions towards them, that their lawyers would handle it for them. And I would say to that, remember what happened to YouTube when they fucked with Steven Crowder? Bill Richmond basically used, I'm not saying he used his advantage, but he got smart. He basically went up and has said, yeah, I'm the half Asian lawyer. What are you going to do? So he stuck it to him the way they would stick it to everybody else. If you're going to, use identity politics, I'm going to use it even better and defend my client who is, by the way, French Canadian. Are you racist against Canadian? And we all know that Canadians are not technically a race any more than the Chinese are. But you get the general idea. They forget that people will play that game better, just as Steven Crowder's did. So,
Dave, the other thing you have to realize about this is the term "useful idiots" exists for a reason. The useful idiots will go ahead and be the foot soldiers. They're going to be the ones that get stuck with the short end of the stick. The organizers will go ahead and, they'll eat each other alive. And the large organizations like It's Going Down, Students for Democratic Society, Open Foundation Society, Media Matters, At Blue, they're already protected under certain statutes anyways, and they have the money and the lawyers that they'll cover their own asses, and they'll leave the useful idiots left floating the bill.
What was the one movie where I can't remember what it is, but it was and I think that the judge ended up getting bumped off but there was a movie or a TV show episode where all these people get charged under the RICO Act, and there's like literally 3,000 lawyers and 5,000 people squished into a courtroom. Oh no, it was The Dark Knight. Remember that scene where they all get busted for the RICO under the Dent Act, which is basically the RICO Act, and then Salvatore Moroni, who's played by Eric Roberts, and the top 3 or 5, crime bosses walk away without even having to worry about bail, and they've sacrificed everybody else, and the judge is just slamming her hammer before she realized she's been targeted by that's basically what would happen, with the exception of the judge getting blown up by the Joker. That's what would happen.
Oh, exactly. Again, money speaks to power and power speaks to money. And that's how these groups end up winning. Because if they're not profiting off of it, they're expanding their power. And that goes for the local government and state government as well. So such is the system that we live in. It's just unfortunate that a lot of these people that are supporting this, if you're a useful idiot, if you're a grunt on the ground, guess what? You're going to be used as a sacrificial lamb. And I don't think a lot of these people realize that.
Well,
yes, William. Even my own granny hates me. I have found a new home here at Mad Dodge Productions. Thank you for recognizing.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you think they really want to destroy systemic racism, as they call it, or do they just want to become the oppressors?
No, they want power. That's what they want. Power. Yeah. It's essentially them saying, we think the system is bad. We're going to replace it with a system that we think is good. Oh, by the way, we want to be the ones in charge, because it's a soapbox. They think their way of doing things is better. And because they didn't win an election, because to be blunt, most of them don't have enough money to win an election or even run for candidacy. They don't want to go through the proper channels. This is what happens with a lot of anarchist groups, especially the anarcho-communist side of things. They want the position of power, and they're going to take it in whatever way they see fit. In this case, it happens to be declaring an autonomous zone and not recognizing any type of state authority.
Your mom is an autonomous zone.
Oh, well, hello there.
Hey, what's up, man?
So then it would go back to the point of, so it would go back to the point of the more foot soldier types, quote unquote, suicide by cop.
Oh, it's
not specifically, but they are, they're holding the grenades, and the other up higher echelon folks have already pulled the pins, right, Doku?
Essentially, again, like with some of the conversations I have with these people on Twitter, they're just showing up to hang out, eat food, and then they can leave whenever they want. That's the majority of them. There is the small handful of people that are taking this seriously, and you're putting yourselves in a position where you're going to end up with a power struggle against you versus the state. And if I remember correctly, what was the dude from California who said, well, we have the nukes? I get the point. That was stupid. That was a stupid statement. I know it was a hollow threat, but you do have to remember, they could still mobilize the National Guard against you, though, and I'd like to see you guys fight against the National Guard when you're already having trouble feeding yourself without outside support.
So this shit gonna play out like Waco, like Pippin, like David Koresh. You know what I mean?
That's a very good analogy.
These people don't these people don't understand what's about to happen to them. Period.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with Waco, you agree with Ruby Ridge, any of that shit. Me personally, David Koresh burning alive, that's okay, because he fucked kids.
Yeah.
That's all right with me. However, what's going to happen to them is not going to be good.
Well, and that's the thing. I hope it doesn't play out like that, because a lot of these people probably don't realize exactly the situation they put themselves in.
Well, they probably don't even know what the fuck Waco is. That's the other problem.
That's a valid point.
All these kids think this is a new idea. Oh, it's gonna be like utopia and this, that, and the other thing. And suck my cock. Nah. The feds are gonna come in and ram themselves right up your ass.
Well, all four of us in this chat right now are old enough to remember Waco in one form or the other. The thing that these idiots are also forgetting is we now live in a post 9/11 world. It's not the same playing field as back in the early to mid 90s when Waco happened.
Well, it's also a good thing that you haven't seen a very the typical black bloc presence that you would normally expect. Yeah, Black Brock. Cultural appropriation. It's a good thing you haven't seen the typical black bloc presence that you would normally expect from a situation like this, considering they were just declared a terrorist organization. Otherwise, you might see things might escalate a lot quicker. I'm hoping the useful idiots go ahead and disperse, like they run out of food or they get bored or something, and the few diehard ones that actually think somehow they're going to challenge the state government, let alone the federal government, they'll be the ones that get left there and inevitably get arrested and charged.
No. Okay, these people are so fucking naive. They were asking for food donations, right? And we need vegan options. Can we get some tofu? Motherfucker, here in about a week, if you're still there, you're going to be so hungry that poodle across the street is going to look good.
And so I have heard that, and I can't confirm this, but I will just say what I've heard from the other side of the coin is that apparently that tweet was photoshopped. But then I also heard that people were, I hate using this term, cyberbullying the original poster of the tweet, trying to get them to kill themselves. So it's like, well, was the tweet legitimate or not? Because you guys did say the homeless that you invited in stole all of your food. Now you're asking for vegan meat substitutes, oats, fruits, soy products, whatever to help us eat. So maybe it was photoshopped, but if it was, then why would you be concerned about people saying mean things to you on the internet if it wasn't legitimate?
No, and I'm sorry, the homeless stole all your food. You stole government land, okay, and you burnt the homeless camps down in your fucking silly little riot. All right, I saw the footage. You were fucking ripping. You were taking the very little scraps of shit that these fucking people, all they had fucking left, and you were burning it right in front of them. Fuck you.
And then they wonder why the homeless are basically taking their supplies. It's like I've said, you push a person hard enough, they're going to push back even harder. They pushed this group of people. This group of people had no recourse but to basically say, well, you've took everything from us. Now you basically owe us in a certain aspect. And that's what they've done. And then these people that did this to the first group, they're now whining about it. Tough shit. You should have left those folks alone and didn't burn them, anybody alive for any reason about anything.
And that's, I mean, if they want communism, then, well, guess what? This is how it works.
I brought up Waco. I do not want to argue about Waco because I don't want to be moral fagged. Like, bring that shit to someone who gives a flying fuck. Suck the give a fuck out of my ass about Waco. I was making a comparison, a good comparison between what's happening in Seattle to Waco or Ruby Ridge. Everything else, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, you made a very excellent comparison. In fact, I'm going to say you're probably going to call it.
Well, that's just what's going to happen. It's just what's going to happen. Period. I mean, look at it.
And real quick, Josh knows my views on both Ruby Ridge and Waco.
And Mad Dog knows that I fucking think those assholes should have burned alive. But whatever, that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
What I just
we don't need to argue that right now. Right now,
we're not gonna argue about that. No, we're not, because David corrected.
Mad Dog, you're the one arguing about it. She's not. She just said she made a valid comparison. You're the one going off the deep end, buddy.
No, I'm not
arguing. People up my ass. Shit about it. It's like, whatever. I don't give a suck to give a fuck out of my ass. I just made a comparison. It's a good one. And they are slowly going to realize the folly of their ways, and the government is just going to mow them down. Period.
They can't bring the, well, actually, there's been firearms cited. They can bring the ATF in, can't they?
They can if they want to.
But
again, it's gonna fall down to the local and state government first before the federal government gets involved. But if this escalates any further, and this is why I keep saying, I hope the useful idiots go ahead and disperse, and there's only a handful of people that get arrested and get charged, because otherwise this situation could go south very quickly. And Bear Dog is correct on her comparison. Regardless of what side of the fence you fall on, you guys are putting yourselves and declaring yourselves enemies of the state. The state will use force if necessary if you let this go on. I don't think that's a fight you're going to win.
Dredd, though? You think any of you think they're going to go full Judge Dredd?
Well,
I don't think they're going to come in guns blazing unless they get shot at first.
Who's going to go Judge Dredd? The government?
Yeah,
no, I mean, yeah. Do you think any government official, whether it's state, local, or federal, you think they're just going to go in there all Judge Dredd style and say, nope, guilty, boom, end of story?
No, what's going to happen is whatever fucking super duper liberal bullshit agrees with it, politician be it, is going to put in an injunction. Something's going to stop a Waco type situation. However, I don't think that's going to last for very long. I think the big daddy federal government's going to come in and be like, nah, y'all fuck now.
Well,
let's be fair.
They're talking about cutting off power, sewage, all the utilities and shit. What are you going to do?
Real quick, Dodge, before you go, I just want to make one point. Let's be fair. They did evacuate that one police precinct simply because there was threats. I hope they took out all the weapons that were in the precinct.
No,
but they did evacuate it.
Doku, have you seen the Reddit posts? These fucking idiots are posting full fucking systems of where they cached their weapons, supply lines, everything. It's on Reddit.
Oh god, they're retarded.
It's on Reddit. It's the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Like, it's interesting that they have weapons caches and supply chains and all that shit. That's very interesting. But why broadcast that on fucking Reddit?
Well, and here's
because they think they live in Grand Theft Auto 5 and nothing's gonna happen.
Well, real quick, let Dodge talk. We've been talking over him.
I'm sorry, man.
it's fine. Here's the thing. I have been railing against the militarization of the police for about 4 years now. Right here on my channel. I've argued with Wolfshot about it. I've argued with MC. Okay, but it's happened. So that being said, you don't think the police or the feds in the area, you don't think they have armored vehicles? They will roll up in there and light your ass up quick as shit. Watch.
That's the reason I don't like what's going on in this particular situation, not just with the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, but everything that's been going on with the riots in general. And I know we had this conversation in the back channels before, but what these useful idiots don't realize is you're giving the state the excuse to exercise more authoritarianism and more power and militarize the police, the one thing that you claim to be against. You're giving them the excuse to do it.
I don't think unfortunately though, I don't think it'll be local powers to end this. I think Big Daddy Trump is going to come in and just be like, it's mine now, bitch. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think that's what the state and local governments want to happen.
So they can all blame Trump and not take any responsibility for what they fucking created. Oh, boom, I did it.
No, I actually agree with you. I said it earlier on stream that I think it's either a win-win situation because either they, A, get to blame Trump, or B, it's an ability for them to consolidate their own local power and then militarize the police force even more than it already is. Because these people don't want reform. They've said it themselves.
The biggest problem with policing is the militarization of policing. Now with that, I must go and eat Korean because I am hungry. Thank you guys for listening today.
Thank you for joining us.
Have a good night.
Think about that Waco thing. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
I'm still saying you're calling it right now. I'm still saying you're calling it.
All right. Good night, guys.
All right. Have a good one, Bear Dog. Yes. No, I'm in agreement, and that's the reason I don't like this situation. I do not like authoritarianism. I don't like anarchy. And right now, the anarchists are giving the authoritarians an excuse to use more power against them, which in turn is going to somehow dick me over in some point in the future. and I'm not appreciative about that.
Yeah, but there's another problem. Around the time we finally get this and COVID wrapped up, because I'm not buying the December mark for like concerts and shit to reopen. I'm not buying that. If they're able to protest, quote unquote, shoulder to shoulder in Los Angeles, like I don't know how many people were there. All right, probably not 1 million, but it fucking looked like 1 million people. All right. If they're able to do that, then we can go see a concert and we can have our lives back. Damn it.
Well, it's like Anthony Brian Logan said. George Floyd killed coronavirus.
Well, notice that for the entire time that these protests have been going on, we didn't hear squat about the coronavirus, and they shifted to white supremacy as a public health issue. And then suddenly, when Donald Trump says he's going to declare a rally, all of a sudden Fauci comes out and starts saying we're going to see a second wave of coronavirus, and it's only just begun. Do you guys think we're that stupid? Seriously? I know you think the masses that still watch Fox News or CNN, you think we're still easily manipulated sheep. But social media is blown up to the point where you guys can't control the narrative anymore, and it's pretty fucking obvious what's going on here. It's only pushed when it's done for the sake of serving a political agenda. You can't tell me that you can't open a business or go get your hair cut, but then I can riot with a group of 20,000 people with no masks. Get the fuck out of here.
But here's the problem. As soon as we get it all wrapped up, everything starts to get back to normal. We're gonna have the election, and mark my words, President Trump's gonna win. And when he wins, they riot again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, it's like I've said to you guys before. Watch, go ahead and look at what happened in Ukraine, not once but twice. What happened when the pro-Russia, pro-Ukraine, pro-nationalist group won, and the EU, UN candidates lost? They had mass protests. Those protests became unruly. They were supported by certain international organizations with a name that begins with an S and a G.
Yeah, we get it. Soros, blah, blah, blah. I love you, buddy, but you don't have to bring up shit every time that has to do with that idiot.
Well, and the thing is, though, it's the same fucking playbook because it's always blame Russia. So I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Why are we blaming Russia now in the same sense that it happened in the Ukraine when a preferred electoral candidate lost, but yet that same electoral candidate gave away 25% of our uranium deposits to a Russian company?
Oh, I can tell you why.
Are you referring to the 2016 elections or today's date?
2016. It's the same playbook.
But I'm going to answer with a 2020 answer because Russians are white.
Ironically enough, that could be a potential reason that we hear coming out of the headlines sometime soon.
You know, white is a racist term, right?
Well,
I'm not shaming you guys. I'm actually specifically making a point that the usage of the word white is a racist term created by the Census Bureau because they couldn't figure out how to differentiate what Caucasian is.
Oh yeah. Anyway, Russian isn't Caucasian of European descent.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole term. Dave, you would probably know this. Was it 2012 or was it 2008 where they started classifying white and non-Hispanic white?
I recall easily. I can't give you the specific date, but I can recall easily by the time that asshat Obama was elected that they had start changing forms on applications for, because I had to fill this shit out when I went back to college to finish off my bachelor's, that I had to identify myself as white of non-Hispanic descent or Latino. And they have since again changed.
I remember.
Since again changed it as saying white of non-Latino or Hispanic descent or Hispanic/Latino. This is why I said white's technically a racist term.
No, I remember when it happened, and it actually fits in with the conversation that we're having. They changed it on the census right after the Trayvon Martin case was tried.
Okay.
That's when it happened. I remember now. But yeah, funny how changing of terms seems to be par for the course.
Yeah,
It has to
no,
fit a narrative.
and they're completely changing our history. They're gonna take down Jefferson Davis Highway. All this shit's happening in your neck of the woods, by the way, Doku. It's not happening in Louisiana and Mississippi. It's happening in Virginia and Maryland.
No, yeah.
Well, you got to understand that Virginia has a governor who's a fucking retard, and I love every chance that Anthony Brian Logan gets to call him out on it.
Oh yeah, it's funny to this day we still don't know if Northam was the one in blackface or the one in the KKK hood. But no matter what way you look at it,
it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that's pissing me off. You want to talk about the complete ingenuousness of corporations. I have this on. If anybody ever wants to bring this shit up from my Twitter, feel free. I'm from Generation X. By the time Generation X came around, we really didn't see in terms of racial abuse. I mean, I understand that my grandfather said certain words, but that was his generation. My dad didn't say it. My aunts and uncles didn't say it, and I never said stuff. But HBO Max is getting so much shit, and I'm glad they are. Well, we're pulling, or we're going to re-put it up with the disclaimer about Gone with the Wind. And I said, you're altering movie history because you don't like the subject matter because of all the asshats on your board of directors, plus the fact you are fucking yourselves over by editing, censoring, and or removing a movie where the first black person ever won the Oscars. Hattie McDaniel, even though she could not go on stage because times were different, she trailblazed the way for a lot of actors that people like, which include Nichelle Nichols on Star Trek, who inspired Jameson the astronaut. There is a domino effect here, HBO, and you are fucking with it. Don't do that. You will burn for it.
And that's the danger of rewriting history because we want to be sensitive or culturally aware. Well, how do you know where we got here, where we are right now in current year, if you don't recognize the history that's behind what led us to this point in the first place? I know it's cliche, but those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But you can't learn from history if there's no history now, is there?
Well, that's kind of the thing with Merriam-Webster being retarded too. And I brought this up on Twitter. They want to change the word what racism means. And I said, yeah. I called them out. And anybody that goes to my Twitter, you'll find this. I basically said, hey, I took a snapshot of this before Merriam-Webster went potato, because they can change what they believe the definition of racism is. But the original definition of racism, which I snapshotted, even if Twitter were to scrub my Twitter account for that, I still have that actual screenshot saved on my external hard drive. And there are other people on the internet who probably have done the same thing. Merriam-Webster is making the mistake of touching shit they don't need to touch. If they were Wikipedia, Wikipedia is also in trouble for this by one of the co-founders for doing absolutely stupid shit, which is why nobody in the actual academics takes Wikipedia as a reliable source, but rather a bouncing off point. Merriam-Webster will go the same way. Anybody that changes a word definition to try to be something more, I guess, for lack of a better term, politically correct, they're going to fall by the wayside and nobody will remember them down the road. I know that when I die, within a few generations, I will be forgotten. That's just reality. But I'm not a company or something that has existed over 100 years that people across the world know by name brand. That's the difference. You want to be in the big leagues. You want to fucking be Lex Luthor or Vandal Savage immortal, as they would want to be immortal because that's what they do because they're villains. You're not going to get there. You're basically going to be the guy who got hit by the Joker controlling the Batmobile, or the Penguin controlling the Batmobile in Batman Returns. Nobody will know who you are. Nice job, dumbasses.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
and
the thing.
there's this constant hatred of their own country. And this is from the liberals. I don't care about your race. It's coming from both sides of this movement. The white, black, brown, yellow, ET flying in to knock down Jefferson Davis' statue on a poor innocent victim. I don't care. What they want to erase everything about the past and restart. Okay, they're like the North Koreans. Okay, they want to take over and probably make their new calendar, just like fucking the North Koreans did. It's insanity.
Yeah, well, the problem is the North Koreans have their counterparts of the South Koreans, where I live in Busan, supposedly half the time of the year, and everything that North Korea has done has been all for naught because they're still looked at as morons to an extent.
Well, and that's the thing. This mentality comes out of post-World War II, when cultural Marxism really started to dig into specifically academia and the entertainment industry. And so, like with the, just to use the example, with Merriam-Webster redefining the term of racism, it actually came out of I believe it was posted in the late 60s or the early 70s. I believe it was either a professor that worked for Yale or Harvard. I think she was a sociologist. But she's the one that came up with the thesis of racism equals power plus prejudice. And her whole thing was, if you don't have any type of power, then you can't exercise any type of prejudice because you have no said power. And that's become the accepted narrative. Well, I would like to rebuttal that real quick. If I'm not in any way, shape, or form oppressed, then I can exercise some degree of power, can't I? Regardless of my ethnicity. So, for example, I could be Hispanic, or I could be African American by heritage. As long as I'm not oppressed by the state or oppressed in some way, shape, or form by society, I have a certain degree of power which I can exercise. And using that power, that means I can exercise a certain degree of prejudice, which means I'm perfectly capable of being racist, which is why that thesis is absolute garbage.
Well, no, and the thing is, they hate people of their own group because they do have groupthink, so I'm going to put it that way. They hate members of their own group who buck the system. You know that African American, or however you want to call him, CEO of a Fortune 500 company who votes Republican. Well, he's not really black, right? That's how they feel. That's how they think.
Yeah, it's like the same. It's like the same thing with Joe Biden saying, if you're debating voting for me or the incumbent, then you're not black. It's like, well, who are you to say? Like, it's why they also throw around the term Uncle Tom and Coon so much, is because it is a groupthink thing. It is a way to publicly ostracize and shame people that step out of line. They're not in lockstep with the accepted narrative. And it's very much a manipulative tactic. It's cultural Marxism at work, and that's how they operate.
And they're the ones that bring this upon themselves generation after generation. To go back to my earlier statement, by the time that I was a teenager, living here in Davenport, there was a fairly decent balance of black kids and white Caucasian kids and Asian kids in my school.
Well, real quick, I'm sorry, Dave, you can finish. Okay, Enigma, I did respond to you. I said, no, he's a cracker. And YouTube rejected my comment on my own channel.
Nice one. Nice one,
the
YouTube.
irony.
Showing once again how mentally infirm you are. But it goes back to my earlier point of, they do this upon themselves. They're the ones that consistently allow the verbal abuse of systemic racism exist. Most Caucasians, we don't care. We're not paying attention. We're doing our own thing. And only unless we have a political affiliation with modern neoliberalism and the self-placed white guilt, which would be the appropriate term, do then we feel bad about it. On daily basis when I work, I deal with 3 types of customers. I deal with the people that are very nice and considerate and want the product, and we are more than happy to accompany them with it. We deal with the customer who doesn't know what they want, and we give them options, and then they figure it out for themselves, and they're very happy with their choice. And then we deal with the completely rude people from the lowest levels of they're having a bad day and they don't want it, they just don't care if they take it out on you because they, whatever, to the F you, blah, 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 blah. Well, in all three of those groups, we come across people with multiple skin tones, multiple age groups, multiple heritages. And we say, how can we help you today? And, it's like, oh, can I get this? Absolutely. Not because we're selling a product, but because the product that we sell, which is a food, is a genuine, unlike what everybody else believes about their causes, is a genuine fundamental right to have. We sell a product. We try to give you the best discount possible, to whereas sometimes we lose money, sometimes we do not but we want to make sure that you're fed. Why? Because you are an American. You are a human being. You have the inherent right as a person, regardless of your nationality. If you want to buy from us, we can sell it to you because food is something everybody needs. It is literally an essential, lest death comes in and wipes you out. That's the thing that these people don't realize, is that their systemic racism towards themselves prevents them from gaining opportunities to do what I do, to do what other people do, which is to be able to take care of themselves. My work, my job, just being an example of how to do things and how and what not to do. The same goes for the neo-lib, and I'm specifically stating neo-lib because it really is a neoliberalist ideology that prevents them from doing it as well. And yet they choose to allow it to continue by using certain words and phrases and hindering their own progress of being complete people. Now, I know a lot of that sounds muddled. A lot of that sounds muddled, but it's a genuine truth. The same as if I were to devalue myself because of my weight, they continually devalue themselves based on skin tone, when a lot of people genuinely don't care.
Well, and Dave, to get to the core of that issue, and this really is at the core of the issue when it comes to progressive identity politics, is when you define somebody's self-worth, and then by extension the worth that they have to society, to simply say what their sexuality or their gender is, a
singular trait.
When you boil it down to something so simple that most people have no control over, again, like sexual preferences, biological sex, ethnicity, background, heritage, age, income. When you start boiling everything down to just those traits, not only does it reduce this by definition, by design of the system itself, you're reducing that person's self-worth and by extension worth to society to simply those esoteric traits. And it results in an entire group of people who in some way, shape, or form feel either disenfranchised, or they were dealt a wrong hand, or there's some form of oppression against them, when that's not the case, at least not in the society that we have here in the United States. Maybe in other countries, yeah, sure, especially countries of certain regions that we won't talk about. But that is the inherent problem with identity politics, because when you don't have a victimization or someone who has this sense of worthlessness or lack of self-worth, they don't feel like they're more important to society than the neighbor next door to them. You create this type of mentality where the only thing they have that they can use to get ahead is play the victim card. And you create an entire group of disenfranchised people who are willing to go out and do certain things that aren't beneficial to themselves or the rest of society, and it makes their entire collective group by extension now look bad. And then you end up with a country divided, and a country divided is easily manipulated and easily controlled. But that is the big problem.
Here's the thing. They are delusional. They believe that they are no longer being the victim because they've been the victim since before they were even born. It's in their DNA, slavery is, by golly. And they still feel the prolonged effects, even though they don't.
That's the thing. They believe them. That's the thing.
Shreveport right now. All right. They're not there.
That's the thing, Dodge. They believe themselves. A lot of these people that buy into the victim mentality and the identity politics, and not only have they been conditioned to think this way, but through that conditioning, they believe themselves to be less than human. So they don't value their humanity because they believe, they believe their sexuality or their skin color is more important than their own humanity, and it results in this type of mentality, and it's very destructive to society.
So what your theory then would be they're projecting upon the rest of us their own inability to cope.
Would this not be more of a reverberation effect because and I wouldn't say they're delusional. I don't think that's a fair assessment. In my opinion, not truth, not fact. But would it not be a reverberatory effect that's happening here? They feel, or they genuinely believe, they think, or they know that they are being projected upon by society on a certain level. Therefore, that's all they think, know, or believe, or think that all they're worth. And therefore, they reverberate what they feel has been bestowed upon them back because they feel they don't think they know any better, and that's how they're supposed to be. Thus, the continual cause and effect of negativity.
Well, what about Neil deGrasse Tyson? What about Michael Jordan? What about Shaq? What about every freaking BB King? What about the CEOs that have made it? There is a lot of examples out of a minority population in the United States that have made millionaires of themselves. And matter of fact, if you look at population levels and demographics, I bet you there's more by demographic black millionaires than they are white millionaires. And I would bet
you're the Matt Dodge, you're the one bringing in skin tone. I'm making it overall generalization.
I'm bringing in skin tone because that's the argument they're making. That's the battlefield of ideas that they're playing in right now. They have already.
It can also be said that, okay, let's shift this example, and I'm going to use you as an example. Most people that hear your voice tone, they think you're some dumb redneck. So they project the fact that they think you're lower intelligence, overall stupid, and cannot function within what they would consider society. If that were to sink into your head, which we know you don't allow that because you are mentally firm and firm/strong. If that were to sink into your head and you were to behave that way and to project it back in society, would you not thus be giving society the same reason to think that you are what you are because you believe they think you are what you are? It doesn't matter your skin tone, my friend. It matters your mental attitude. And there are many people across the board whose mental attitude and their mental processes are so sharp, they're so firm, they are mentally assured success because they have willed it, because they have said to the odds, I don't care about this. I'm not going to do this. I refuse this. I reject this, which is why we can name people like President Trump, Bill Gates, Neil deGrasse Tyson, even Christopher Reeve. We can name actors, musicians, politicians, anybody who we would quote unquote put on a superstar level status because mentally they chose to be stronger. If you really want to get down to brass taxes, Ice Cube, I'm going to bring up two examples here, and I'll make this very brief. Ice Cube played the game well. Ben Carson played the game even better. If we're going strictly by monetary, Ben Carson blows anything that Ice Cube makes out of the water. But look at what the two separate people do. Ice Cube continues to play the card to gain favor because that's how he wants to stay relevant. Ben Carson doesn't play the black card or this card, that card, because he knows he does it by example. He leads by example. Ice Cube does not. So it doesn't necessarily matter your skin tone. It just matters what the circumstance is that may or may not be projected upon you.
No, I totally agree that race shouldn't matter at all. But in the battlefield we are now participating in, the battlefield of ideas, They've made it matter. They have said
That is true.
They have said every representation of white America is evil, needs to be wiped out, just like every communist statue needed to be wiped out in Russia. Okay? They have equated Robert E. Lee with Stalin. What?
Again, that shows how stupid they are. And that's why they're
Again,
dangerous idiots.
You're also talking about people that have, when you're talking about reverberation and projection, really what it does boil down to is a very effective use of the Hegelian dialectic with problem, reaction, solution. So you create a problem. We already had the civil rights movement. We already had the suffrage movement. All that's happened. But that doesn't fit to project a certain political ideology or fit a certain narrative. So what do? You create the problem. How can you do that? Well, you control 3 aspects of society. You can go in and read this. It's multiple books that people have talked about. If you can control the entertainment industry, if you can control the education system, and if you can have some degree of control over the political system, you can artificially create a problem and then let people react to it accordingly and then provide them with a solution. That's why we have this idea now, post-1950s, 1960s, of systemic racism or oppression in one way, shape, or form. And as long as that keeps going, as long as you pander to it and you keep people within this victim mentality and you keep them buying into the identity politics, you can continue to have that garnered support. That is the solid base that the cultural Marxist progressive left has and what they've built up over the course of decades. Once you've done that, you don't want them to get rid of that victim mentality. That is your base. It's the same thing as like what was going on just with the COVID situation, where if you put someone on welfare, on unemployment, if the government's paying you better, then what motivation do you have to go back to work? Well, you don't have any motivation. You're going to vote for whoever's going to continue to at least pay you that same amount of unemployment. If they promise you more, you're going to vote for them, because no one's going to vote against their own self-interest. I don't care what people say. 99% of the time, no one is going to vote against their own self-interest because it's for the collective greater good, despite what people might tell you on social media or to your face at the bar. It is the same exact mentality.
Flip side to that specific example, which is a very good one and very truthful one, is I was working about a week ago and I had a woman come in, buy product. And I said, "What can I get you today?" And she says, "I need this product." I said, "Sure, it'll be X amount of dollars." And she had a distressed look on her face. And I said, "Hey, what's wrong?" She goes, "Well, I work for a temp agency." I'm like, "Uh-huh." And I just had the look of, I hate temp agencies because I don't like them. I think they're crap. But that was just my look on my face. I'm like, "Uh-huh." And she says, "Well, we are starting to have people come in asking for people to work, but they won't do the jobs." I said, "Let me guess. They're making more off unemployment." She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, let them." She goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, here's the thing. You are now in a position of power." She goes, How do you figure?" And I said, "The time in Iowa is coming very, very fast to where unemployment will go poof." And she goes, "Okay." And I said, "You will be in the position of power to say to all those people that you offered jobs to, that they could have taken less, that they could have taken, got a little bit of extra in addition to a little bit less of unemployment, or have led to actual jobs to which would give you in the long run retirement capabilities." I said. She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "You will now be in a position of power. So when those people say, 'Well, my unemployment ran out, I need a job,' you can say, 'No, we tried to call you 3 to 6 months ago. You refused us. You're not what we're looking for.'" Which will then, and now I know the reverberation of this is they'll try to go back on unemployment. What's going to happen? Well, not only will this lady be able to say, "We don't need you," but now we can pick and choose even better people because they want to work. But the people that will try to go back on unemployment will effectively be denied. Then they will have to basically realize, and they won't admit to it, of course, and they'll say, "Oh, I was on unemployment, but then I couldn't get a job and now unemployment's denied." And they're going to play the victim card. Don't get me wrong. And they think that, voting in their own self-interest will do some good, but the reality check will be it will do zero good. And a guy like me who was forced to take a couple months of unemployment, I said, "Hey man, this unemployment stuff sucks. Let me know when I can get back to work." I would call once a week at my job. This is while I was stuck here, coming back from South Korea, Busan, you know? And they said, well, we've got nothing because we have to freeze everything. Well, I'm still in a position to where I've had a job with this company for a long time. I've seen some friends come and go. I've seen some fellow employees lose their jobs. And the first thing they do is they'll take the unemployment that's offered. But unlike everybody else who votes in their own interest, they're saying to the temp agencies, give me something to do, because they have the strength of they have the mental strength to say, yeah, I need to physically rest, but I also realize I need something to do. They're in the different boat than the people in Iowa who will be cut off at the kneecaps, begging for work and getting rejected. This is something that is going to happen across the board. And the people that believe that they are voting in their own good interest for the party that gives them the welfare, they're going to realize down the road, whether it is a week, a month, a year from now, maybe a decade from now, they've basically beheaded themselves, and it's everybody else that was willing to do the temp agency work that have now gone far beyond their reach. That is a reverberation of economic fact. And I told this to this lady in infinitely fewer words. And then last week she came in and she says, hey, guess what? You were right. And I said, okay. I didn't know what the hell she was talking about until she told me. And that's where I came up with the other part, because everything that I told you, she told me. She goes, I've noticed this effect. And I said, okay, because the state of Iowa is starting to say that to unemployment, we're done.
That's the other thing. And I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too far. The problem with trying to fund these large state programs when it comes to either unemployment or Medicare for all, you're going to have to fund it in one way, shape, or form. So there's three important points I want to touch on. The first one being the most obvious. If you've been on unemployment for longer than 3 months and then you go apply to a job, even if it's through a temp agency, the person who's been on unemployment for 2 months is going to get the job before you. That's just the way companies hire. That's just the way it works. So if you want to market yourself, even if it's doing volunteer work, it still makes you more marketable as opposed to just accepting the government dollar and voting for whoever's going to keep your unemployment going. You know, you don't want to rely on government. You want to better yourself. You want to be able to market yourself. That way companies have a little bit of, you're already going into the door with a little bit of well of good faith, and they're going to be more inclined to hire you than hopefully the next person. The second problem is when you start talking about these government programs like unemployment, Medicare for all, that money has to come from somewhere. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to continue to perpetuate the problem that Yang and Bernie Sanders were talking about, where wages don't keep up with the cost of living, and now you have to tax people more. That's less money out of your pocket. You still have to pay your bills, but now you have less disposable income. When you have less disposable income, that's less money to spend. The gears of the economy start turning slower, and we're largely a consumer/service-based economy here in the United States. The more you raise taxes, the more damage you do to the real economy, and the slower those gears turn. The slower those gears turn, the more that the cost of living goes up, because it's inevitable with an inflationary currency system that we have. Those costs of living will inevitably go up. More and more people, the poverty line is by extension going to continue to go up. That means more and people end up on unemployment. That requires more taxes to fund it. And I know the solution that the progressives want to say, and the democratic socialists, is like, well, we can go ahead and tax the rich. Yeah, as long as they're running a business in the United States and they're willing to actually hire or pay a wage that people can live off of and don't have to go on unemployment just to make ends meet, you're going to start seeing businesses, especially small business, middle class, like people who might be worth just over $1 million. Those small businesses are going to slow down. They're not going to be able to hire people, or what the Sanders campaign did. They're going to have to cut hours. This has a negative cascading effect on the economy. As things get more expensive, you pay for it one of two ways. You either have to strangle business in order to get the money out of them to pay for these programs, or you strangle the entire economy by printing more money through the fiat currency system, which is essentially just a backwards tax, because now you're just increasing the inflation rate past the natural 2%, where it's what's supposed to be put at. Either way, the rich people, they're just going to move their money overseas, or they're going to move it into different asset classes. They're not going to be losing money. It's the middle class and the poor that are going to end up struggling the most, which is why
Don't-
these types
don't
of
forget,
policies
Doku,
don't work.
don't forget that people do not largely currently possess the mentality of knowing how to moderate.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's a simple solution. You do not flood the economy with more cash. You let the market correct itself, because what's going to happen is as it's a supply and demand. So demand goes down, supply goes up, prices decrease, and it'll stabilize. The government starts freaking out and they want to manipulate it, and that's what makes it worse.
Well, that's
'cause
why
the
I
government-
said people don't have the capability of moderation. They don't know what it means anymore, and those that do are the smart ones and are reaping the rewards for it, especially right now, to where if you don't need something, don't get it. Like I was telling you guys before we started the broadcast here, I actually waited very patiently and saved up a little bit of side cash to get my current setup of my Tascam headphones, my Blue Yeti, and everything else. I didn't just go, oh, I have the money, let's go buy this shit. I moderated, and now I'm reaping the rewards. The problem is people don't do that because they're consistently given, they're barraged with the bullshit of you have to have it now. And that's what I was trying to add to Doku's. That's what I was trying to add to Doku's bit. There's, in addition to everything he's saying, people choose not to moderate.
Yeah, and I think that covers the news and economics portion.
Oh, only? Shit.
So I got a list, and I guess there's 50 on this list. We'll blow through the first part of it. The biggest box office hits of all time. Let's see how shitty these movies are. So number 50 is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. That really wasn't that bad, was it? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, I was never a huge Harry Potter fan anyways, so I can't comment.
How much do you think it made?
I don't know how much it made. I didn't have a problem with it because it was part of a series and it was just continually, as part of a series and you watch it because you know where the story goes. I'm not a fan either. It's just, I saw that, it's like the Hunger Games. I saw those and go, oh, hey, there's these 4 parts of this movie. I want to see how it plays out. There you go.
I have kids, and my wife likes Harry Potter too, so I've seen it numerous times. It's not a bad movie. I actually like Prisoner of Azkaban better, personally.
Yeah, yeah, it's a movie.
I'm gonna guess 112 million.
Oh, it's way over that. All right, so this is number 50, 939,885,929 in 07.
You didn't get any money from me, I can tell you that. I wasn't aware of it. I've always watched pirated copies of a lot of movies because I get to the party too late to invest in them.
Yeah, no, and there's going to be a lot of kids movies. I think Hollywood, that's the one thing they're doing correctly even now, is they're making kids movies that are actually making money. Anyway. 49 is Finding Nemo. So, generic Disney movie.
Never saw it.
Dora was funny. Just keep swimming, right, Doku? Kind of like Kem, huh? Just keep swimming. No, Doku got kicked again. You never saw Finding Nemo, huh?
No, because I'm a goddamn adult.
Oh, yeah.
My girls are also were adults when that came out, so why the hell would I watch it? You got to think realistically. Even though my voice sounds very high pitched, when somebody says you sound like you're barely in your 20s, like no, I'm pushing 50. My kids were out of high school and halfway through college before going in the military when that movie came out. We don't really care.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a lot of that from me of I didn't see it, and that's what it's going to mean.
Yeah. Doku, Finding Nemo. Does Cam remind you of Dora?
I've never seen Finding Nemo.
Ah!
I'm like clipped it, but I've never watched it.
Again,
I'm
we're
the only
adults.
parent here with kids still that age. So let's move on from Finding Nemo. It came out in 2003. It made 940 million. Number 48, The Hobbit: Battle of the Five Armies.
Eh.
Do you think they should have split the shortest book of the series into 3 movies?
No.
No, no. It should have been. It should have been one part. It should have been The Hobbit and Desolation of Smaug. It should have stopped there.
There wasn't even enough. There was no material to make it 3 movies yet. They did what they did, and it's all in the past. And honestly, by the time that came out, I was burned out from the Lord of the Rings movies, which, by the way, Lord of the Rings, people, is not technically a trilogy. It's one book with 3 major parts. Does not make it a trilogy. Bite me.
I had the box set, and it was divided into separate books. It was a 4 box set.
It's one book in 3 parts. They separated in 3 parts for sales purposes, because when it came out, nobody was going to read those 3 books in one fell swoop. It's a marketing decision. Still does not make it a trilogy.
Yeah, because I haven't read.
And also, the story. The story itself was separated into acts, but it is one. It is Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 of the same story. So it's not. Date is correct. It is by classical definition, it is not a trilogy. It's just one really, really, really long book. But
I will be fair. I will say that the movies are a trilogy because they had. At the time, they did not have the capability of, letting you sit down and watch all 3 in one fell swoop. So movie standards, yeah, they're a trilogy. But book, no. Anyway, next one.
From a storytelling standpoint. Yeah, from a storytelling standpoint.
Okay, the next one. Battle of the Five Armies made 956 million.
Mm-hmm.
Number 47 is another Hobbit movie. It's the Desolation of Smaug. Whatever.
Desolation of Smaug. Why am I not surprised that one was next?
Yeah, and it made 958 million, so 2 million more, give or take. We already talked about those movies. Actually, we'll blow through that.
I did like the Desolationists. Oh, the only thing I was going to say is I actually did like the Desolation of Smaug. I thought that was actually a pretty decent adaptation.
Yeah.
The CGI on the dragon was really good, actually.
No, I also like the back. My favorite part of that whole movie is the back and forth between Bilbo and Smaug. That was a really well done dialogue.
Or didn't he fight the spider in that one, or was that the first one?
The spiders in the forest.
Oh.
Well, no. If you're thinking of Shobold, that's Frodo, and that was the. Oh, I can't remember. I think that was. Yeah, I think that was Return of the King.
Return of the King.
No, because Bilbo kills it, but fucking the other Hobbit dude, or no, Frodo kills it. Bilbo does meet it. That's when he finds the ring.
No, that was Gollum. You're thinking of the scene when he's in the forest with the brown wizard, and that's where Sting gets his name.
Yeah. Yeah, the sword. That's where that's where Sting gets its name. Yeah. Anyway,
I think that was the first movie.
Run from that spider. I could be wrong though. 46, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. I have a beef with this. That should have been there shouldn't have been a Part 1 and Part 2. Should have been one thing.
Didn't see it.
Neither did I. I can't comment. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, I'll be honest.
Yeah, 960 million. And this is surprising to me, number 45. The fucking Jumanji movie with The Rock in it in 2017.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't really surprise me because a lot of people grew up with Jumanji and they saw this with The Rock and Karen Gillan. And it really is a good continuation. It's very respectful to the first movie. It acknowledges that the first movie happened. It's its own thing. It's very fun. It's very enjoyable. And everybody in that movie gives a good performance. I am not surprised it did as good as it did. It's a really damn good movie.
Again, never saw it.
Oh, you're missing out. Give it a shot if you can.
Yeah, I would think the original Jumanji would have made more money. Maybe it's on this list. I didn't look through it ahead of time. It made 962 million. And anybody else like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies? Because at 44 we got At World's End. It made 963 million in 2007. I like the pirate movies.
See, I'm very conflicted about the Pirates.
I've only watched
movies.
the first three.
See,
there's only so many trilogies and sagas you can deal with anymore.
I'm conflicted about the pirate movies because yes, they were entertaining. The performances I thought were admirable. The writing was pretty good. I do feel like it was rushed. I feel like there's a lot more world building that could have happened. I feel like the first three could have been stretched into 4, maybe even 5 movies and cut down on the runtime a little bit. But that's a small nitpick.
Doku, do you want to answer Aunt Jack or Dave?
No, I will. I'm going to answer this. Aunt Jack, no, it is not odd, and I'll tell you why. I'll make a very brief comparison. A lot of people like the Final Fantasy series, but they don't like fantasy type movies, mainly because of the storytelling and the interactiveness. I, for one, was never a Final Fantasy player until part 7. And I did not get into it because a lot of it passed me by. But I like most of the Final Fantasy games now that I've played them because the storytelling had the capability of being expanded upon in a way that movies cannot do that unless, of course, they're sagas or trilogies or whatever. And I'll revert back to the Lord of the Rings. The reason those 3 movies work is because they were based off source material. They were difficult to adapt, but they stayed true and faithful to the story. And they had the capability of expanding upon said story and doing it right. Very much like you would a fantasy video game. So no, you're not at all odd, not at all weird. I think a lot of people share your sentiment for those reasons.
And actually, I want to expand on that a little bit, specifically with the way things are currently in the entertainment medium that we have. Fantasy books and fan movies have the same interaction that you can get with a video game, and it comes to stories that are set in the high fantasy.
You're breaking up real bad. I tried to let it roll, bud, but you might want to drop out and come back. I tried to let it roll, but you're breaking up real bad. But so At World's End, I think that's number 4. So you probably didn't see it, huh?
I stopped after number 3 mainly because I was on burnout. I think it was really just a personal thing. That's, for as much as people give the CW shit, one thing that they do right a large portion of the time is whether you agree or not with how the stories are or the subject material, the CW and the Arrowverse specifically, because it's a weekly or a bi-weekly show, they have, again, the capability of taking a storyline and spreading it out. And you can watch bits and pieces of the episodes or any episode you want in any order, go back forward through the timeline of whatever said show, and you get something out of it, as to where movies do not have that capability because they are, X amount of time making it, X amount of time presenting it, X amount of time of letting it be shown. And they are forced to squish things together. They can't just expand it because it costs a large multitude more money than a TV show does. And again, I pointed out the Arrowverse because whether people like the Arrowverse or not, that's one of the things that DC does right, because they took comic book material, put it in a TV show, whether and I'm not getting into the debate or the morals and ethics of how the stories are, the subject matter, but they have the capability of being more flexible. that's why the TV shows work better than a lot of movies. And I think that's why a lot of movies or ideas that could be movies are going into the Netflix area and being specials or TV shows, because they have now the capability of running side by side, if not advancing it further than an actual movie, with being able to present the material a certain way. And I think that's where Pirates of the Caribbean had its problems, because they made one movie, it did so well, and then they kind of pulled a Matrix to where they have to have more movies to keep that money raking in. And Johnny Depp, of course, saying, yeah, I want the money. But really, after 2 and 3, you've already dealt with Captain Jack Sparrow and the other Elizabeth Swann and what was Orlando Bloom's character? Anyone?
I don't remember. Mad might remember.
Anyway, yeah, but you get the idea. They basically had William. You basically had Captain Jack Sparrow, his stuff. You had William and Elizabeth Swann, their stuff. And by the third movie, they've pretty much dealt effectively with it. And so anything after that is, well, now what do we do? Oh, let's explore Barbossa. What? Well, why? Because he's the only character that you could touch upon without really rehashing anything, which, again, so they ran out of material. And that's probably why I would say to people, you can watch the whole series all you want. I'm not going to tell you not to, but you're really going to get more out of the first 3 because you're invested in those 3 main characters.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the pirate movies. Number
There's
40,
nothing wrong with that.
Number 43, the live action Jungle Book, 966 million. I didn't like that. I liked the cartoon way better.
Didn't watch it.
I didn't see it, so no opinion.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the live action. Here's an old movie, The Lion King, 968 million. Everybody saw The Lion King. Come on now.
I didn't.
Doku, you had a childhood without watching The Lion King?
No, I watched The Lion King. It's a kid's movie, but I liked it. I thought it was well done. It's probably one of Disney's better movies.
Wasn't Scar a badass? I don't know. I was even as a kid, I was rooting for Scar.
No, I like Scar's character. As far as like original Disney movies that they've put out that aren't based on old school Germanic fairy tales, Lion King is probably the best one they've done that isn't a Pixar film, at least. But I don't know. There's not really a lot to say about The Lion King. It was good.
But yeah, no, Lion King's a classic. Another cartoon you guys probably haven't seen it. We could blow by it. Despicable Me 2. It was all right. I watched it with the kids. I don't know. I'm indifferent. 970 million. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, 974 mil. And we get to a good movie, 39, The Dark Knight. Not the best movie. I say the Jack Nicholson Joker Batman is better, but other than that,
I'm debating whether or not it's actually a good movie. Is it a competent movie? Absolutely, but good is relative.
It's really slow at the beginning, isn't it?
Well, it's supposed to be. And I think that's where it succeeds over its follow-up, is because there is the tension building and it does get somewhere and it presents things and it world builds off Batman Begins. I'm just saying good is relative. And I think my only issue is everybody thinks this is the best Batman movie ever because of Heath Ledger's Joker. And I'm like, which is why I've often said to people, there is a Batman for every generation, just as there's a Superman for every generation. People love to get mad at me because I don't like Man of Steel. And I said, do you want to know why the reason I have a problem with Man of Steel? It's not the actors. It's not the idea of the story. It's not even Zack Snyder. It's the fact that Superman snapped Zod's neck. Well, he was supposed to stop him. Yeah, but he also goes exactly against every single principle that Jonathan Kent taught him and how to live and how to control himself. That's why I have a problem with Man of Steel. Is it technically a bad movie? Nah, it's hit or miss. It's got some great stuff. But again, good is a relative term.
I really liked Heath Ledger's portrayal. It was dark, it was gritty, and it was his best performance. Then it was followed by his death, but it was Heath Ledger's best performance I've ever seen him do. And I watched.
You've not seen a lot of Heath Ledger movies then, because there's a lot better ones.
I've seen quite a few. My other favorite movie by him is probably the only chick flick I actually like. 10 Things I Hate About You. Good fucking movie.
Well, you've never seen A Knight's Tale?
I love that movie too. I just it's not my favorite by him. You know, Knight's Tale is great. That's not it.
Well,
I love history, so they're playing We Will Rock You.
Heath Ledger himself is a good actor. Heath Ledger himself is a good actor, and like a good actor, he had a good director, which was Christopher Nolan, who was doing all the movies. There was consistency. So it doesn't necessarily make him the best Joker. It makes him a damn good Joker because he was a good actor, he had a good script, and he had a great director who knew what to do with continuity and keep things consistent. That's why that movie is good to a lot of people, and why some people can still say, like myself, good is relative. I think personally it was story-wise weak. It was weak story-wise, and I'm not a fan of the Joker, but I'll be damned if I don't give Heath Ledger credit for being a good actor who was combined with a good director, who was combined with a good script.
Yeah, and I gotta talk to Aunt Jack here for a second. Okay. I hate Dark and Gritty.
I gotta grab some water.
This is how you know a series is dying. Dark and Gritty is just pure laziness. No, not always. Example would be the movie we're talking about right now, because the movie we're talking about right now, Dark Knight, that is almost exactly like the Dark Knight comics that came out about a decade before these movies were written. Okay, and that's the best comic series in the Batman universe, in my opinion, because I love the Batman that I don't know if you can relate to him. I mean, who's action fighting or bad guy fighting fucking millionaire? No, I'm not. Doku, are you?
Only when we're playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, and Pinoid, $2. Thank you, sir. Sargon was really good in A Knight's Tale. You know what I liked about A Knight's Tale, though, is the herald that would introduce him, and he's just making shit up the whole time. You know what I mean?
No, that movie was funny as shit. As far as a little bit more back on the rails, as far as Dark and Gritty goes, when done right, it's good. The problem is there's so much cookie cutter crap out there that they think, putting something in an LA noir style setting and giving it an edgy protagonist with a sketchy background that we don't know much about, and then a sympathetic, maybe you could consider the other character to be a protagonist. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good movie. I do think The Dark Knight did Dark and Gritty properly because it's more realistic than like V for Vendetta.
Hey, I like V for Vendetta. I watch that every year on November 5th. I own it.
I'm not talking shit about V for Vendetta. I'm just saying when you want to do Dark and Gritty, V for Vendetta is not the way you do Dark and Gritty. Hey, The Dark Knight, I think they did the Dark and Gritty theme well. Followed by Watchmen is probably my second favorite quote quote Dark and Gritty movie. V for Vendetta is more of a socio-political commentary, but I don't view it as being dark and gritty the same way I don't view Sin City as being dark and gritty. Stylistic, perhaps, but it doesn't have the same type of realism to it that The Dark Knight did, which is what I like about The Dark Knight. Now, after giving The Dark Knight that praise, I will say that movie had a lot of missed potential that it was there, but they didn't capitalize on it.
Like what? We could dive into this movie a little bit more. We just blew by 5 fucking Disney movies that nobody gives a shit about. So, let's at least talk about this one because I like the moral conundrums that the Joker puts the citizens through. Okay, you have law-abiding citizens on one fairy or whatever, and then convicts on the other, and they both have a button to blow the other up. Am I the only one that was shocked when the convicts didn't immediately just push the fucking button?
I think you're the only one who honestly cares, because we're supposed to be going down on a list.
See, I do. I'll get through this real quick because this will sum up. This will sum up how I feel about the Dark Knight rather succinctly. I do like that part that you're referencing, Dodge, where it essentially flips the moral compass on its head. I wish it was built out a little bit more. I would have appreciated more scenes with the convicts, more scenes with, even if it's just like a quick 30-second scene, so that when you see these characters pop up later, you kind of you care a little bit more. The Joker presented a nice dichotomy between Bruce Wayne, Batman, and how his worldview of things are, but it doesn't feel like Batman has a lot of character development in The Dark Knight, which I think is a missed opportunity. There could have been a lot of just random citizens that could have been touched on more, and that might have made me actually give more of a shit. Like, let's be blunt. The shining star of that movie was Heath Ledger's Joker, and he does present a good moral conundrum and a good villain to Batman. But all of that aside, the movie is just making a single point, and it has a very long runtime by comparison to a lot of other comic book movies. So I think there's a lot of wasted space that could have been used to kind of make us actually really care more about what the message of the movie was, where, order versus chaos, chaotic good versus chaotic evil. That I feel is a great missed opportunity, and it's very unfortunate.
I'm going to counterpoint that real quick. What I think you both may or may not be missing is the Joker is presenting of, well, what will you do in this situation or that situation? The real genuine star of that whole movie was Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, specifically when he brings up the point of, he's saying, yeah, I'll help you be Batman. I'll make this. I know why you're doing this, this, this. But when Batman says, I'm going to use this trace technology, Lucius Fox basically says what everybody should have been thinking of: you've gone too far, Batman. You've gone too far in regards to being an authoritarian figure, just as much as the Joker went too far being an anarchist and a supposed anarchist. Joker himself was still an agent of, and I'm not getting to the paradigms here, he was still not an agent of chaos and anarchy as much as people think he is. His character was written so well that he actually outthought everybody. He did push Batman to an authoritarian edge, and Lucius Fox being the shining star because he says, I'm the one that's going to put my foot down. Not even Alfred did that. So Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox has basically said, again, I'm putting my foot down because I think you've gone too damn far. And that's when Bruce says, okay, fair enough. I'm going to give you the power to stop me if and when necessary. And Lucius does. His character through all three movies is the real star in a very subtle and different way than the action portion, because Lucius Fox is the everyman of what would you do in this situation, even more than Alfred. And Lucius Fox alone in these movies is the one person that can say to Batman and Bruce Wayne, no, and get away with it.
Yeah, I agree. And last point on this, and we'll move on. Doku, I'm with you a little bit on some lost opportunities, because they had that angle of the other vigilantes, right? What they should have did is not have a fat idiot bumbling around as a vigilante, but somebody that is almost as good as Batman, but maybe he actually kills instead of captures. And that would be a shock to Batman's worldview, right? Somebody's taking my idea, but they're going all the way with it and actually killing people. And I'm responsible because I brought this to Gotham.
Well, yeah, I would tend to agree. Like I said, rather than focusing so much on Rachel, Batman, the Joker, Lucius. Not that they're characters that shouldn't be focused on, but there was a lot more room to actually kind of expand Gotham and some of the side characters, even if they're just showing up for that movie a little bit more, where you would feel the weight of the moral tension going on. I'm not saying The Dark Knight was bad. I'm just pointing out I do think there was a lot of wasted screen time that could have been put to better use, and it could have really cemented the socio-political message that the movie was trying to make.
Yeah, and the next movie on the list, number 38, another one, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey.
Wait a minute. What number was the Dark Knight?
39. It made $1,004,000,000.
Okay, just checking.
In the box office total. Unexpected Journey made $1,021,000,000 respectively. Obviously, a little bit more. Anything about the first Hobbit movie, or we already covered that pretty good?
No, the first Hobbit movie was good. There's not really a lot to say about it. They did cut out some material that they shouldn't have from the book, but all in all, not a bad adaptation. I don't know. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
All right. 37, Zootopia. I saw that. It was interesting. It made, all these are going to be over $1 billion, so I'll just go back to the millions mark. So there's $1 billion at the beginning of all these, and then 23 million. You guys don't watch cartoons.
Didn't see it.
Yeah, you guys don't watch cartoons. So moving up to 36.
No, wait, what?
Zootopia. It was that Disney movie about
Okay.
yeah, a rabbit that's a cop or some shit. I don't remember.
It was decent.
The Alice in Wonderland, but not the good one, the Johnny Depp one. What do you think about that?
That's not fair. I'm going to say this right now. I think the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderlands, if anybody really wants to know what I think, go watch the Nostalgia Critic on that, because I think Doug explained those perfectly. They're not as bad as you think they are. Stupid, maybe. Lazy, a little bit. But, whatever. It's Tim Burton's style. They're not as bad as you think. He tried something new, and people panned him for it. Tough shit. They're not that bad.
Honestly, I thought it was a decent popcorn movie. It entertained me. It entertained me. It's not something I'm going to think that much about, but I wasn't bored watching it. So all in all, I would say it's a decent reimagining of Through the Looking Glass. It twists the movie in a way that I wasn't expecting, which kept me entertained. And I finished my popcorn by the end of it. So all in all, I'll say it was a success, but it's nothing I'm going to write home about. I can't talk shit about it.
And that's my point. Both of them were just good popcorn movies. Don't overthink them.
Yeah. Like, I didn't think it was the worst movie of all time. I just don't think it's the better of the Alice in Wonderlands. I like the old one. Okay. This is gonna freak. Oh, and that was 25 million. And remember, there's $1 billion at the beginning. 35, and you guys are gonna go on I'm gonna let you guys just go and roll with this. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I'm gonna mute myself. Go for it.
In the larger scheme of things, not that bad.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have the same type of problems with The Phantom Menace that a lot of other people have. It built on the Star Wars universe in a way that I thought was appropriate. Yeah, we can bitch about Jar Jar all we want. Everybody's done that. No point in talking about Jar Jar. Mm-hmm. The pod race scene, I don't know. It helped as a decent break in the tone and tension for the movie. Maybe a little bit drug out for too long. Yeah, perhaps. I'll give you that argument. Darth Maul was a great enemy. The Trade Federation was a good enemy. It led to the Confederation and inevitably the creation of the Death Star and the Galactic Empire. All in all, no, really not that bad. It could have been done better, by all means. Yes, it could have. Character design could have been better. Pacing could have been better. All things considered, it doesn't deserve the hate that it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brad fell. Sorry. Okay, so what I think about the pod racing, hey, at least that made a pretty good video game. That was fun. How is Darth Maul a good bad guy? He died really quick.
Did he?
He was a good bad guy for one particular reason. It takes a really good skill to write up a character who doesn't talk, is still viewed as a challenge to not only the Jedi Master but also his Padawan. And the fight scenes were well done. He has a very intimidating feel behind him, and he does it all without speaking a single line. I'm sorry, that deserves recognition. He was the Phantom Menace. He was the enemy that you don't hear utter a word. He's in the black cloak, and he just shows up. You don't know where he came from. You don't know what his motivation is. All you know is that he's there to fuck your day up, and he's not your friend.
Was he the Phantom Menace? Because I thought that was in reference to Palpatine. To be honest,
it was in reference to the Sith on a whole. But most people could consider that Darth Maul was the physical embodiment of the Phantom Menace, being that he didn't speak and that he was more emotive through his actions and his facial, through his eyes and emotions and his body language. So there's two sides to whatever.
It's also worth pointing out that the Jedi at this point in time didn't even realize the Sith had come back. So when Darth Maul shows up and you see the dual red lightsaber go on, it's just as much of a shock to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan that the Sith are actually back, and they're very much a challenge for you. It is that enemy you never expected, the Phantom Menace, just showing up out of nowhere and catching you blindsided. And that's why I say Darth Maul is a great villain, because he's sort of like the Night King. You never thought he existed. You thought it was a legend. You thought they're dead. And then all of a sudden, now he's in front of you again. Well, crap, what are you going to do?
Do you think they killed Qui-Gon too quickly in the series?
That's really more of a matter of opinion. It would have been nicer to maybe see more of him, but his death did have impact. It helped drive Obi-Wan's character forward. So, yes and no.
Okay. All right. Let's see. And that made 27 million. Well, and yeah, I'm gonna stop saying the billion thing because I already made that clear. Finding Dory, nobody. If you guys if you didn't see Finding Nemo, you definitely didn't see the sequel. All right, here's a classic, number 33. 29 million. Jurassic Park, the original. What do you think?
Yes.
I didn't see it until it came out on VHS, and my first response to it was, well, because at the time it came out, I was not I was not a nice guy in general. I didn't really give a shit. But when I first saw it on DVD, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good, mainly because the special effects held up, and it was and I did see the second and third one first. I liked the third one a little better, I liked the second one a little better. But on a whole, I think the first three movies work pretty decently, even if Sam Neill's not in all of them. And the first one still holds up because it's fun. And it's not convoluted like the garbage that they put under the Jurassic Park name now.
What do you think, Doku? And if you have no thoughts, I'll throw a question at you.
No, I liked the first Jurassic Park movie. It was fun. It also did have an underlying message about genetic modification, evolution, things like that. So there was a more well thought out plot line than just monster of the week type bullshit. And soundtrack, acting, casting, directing, all around solid movie. Still a bit of a popcorn movie, but it at least had some fucking decent writing behind it and a narrative and a message. So no, if I had to give it a ranking, 7 out of 10. Maybe 7.5.
Yeah, sorry about the delay there. Just another nerd, or voice of one, as I usually call him, said, I saw Jurassic Park in the cinema and it was awesome. Yeah, I went to Six Flags, and they had the Jurassic Park VR ride or whatever. That was pretty badass. So it was kind of like what they have at Universal Studios, but it was at Six Flags. My favorite scene out of Jurassic Park has to be probably everybody's favorite scene, when the lawyer gets eaten in the fucking bathroom.
No, well, I would have to say, when I first saw it, there were other, I actually just watched this the other day, and I there are different parts that I like now more so. When I first saw it, I was too busy looking at Laura Dern's ass, so every time she was on the screen, I was happy. And I did snicker at the lawyer getting eaten by the T-Rex, but I thought, well, he kind of asked for it. And I think there were a lot more better parts, specifically with Nedry getting shredded by raptors, only to be, and that's still one of my favorite parts, because it's followed up by the you didn't say the magic word, and pissing Sam Jackson off, of all things. So that's, that as you get older and you rewatch movies, you find different things. But Nedry getting eaten, shredded by the raptors, and I think they were velociraptors. If I'm wrong, somebody in the comments tell me. That's fine. I'm good with that. But that followed up by the Sam Jackson getting pissed off because he doesn't like hacker crap will always be my favorite part of that movie.
Yeah, those poor kids. They're like, he's leaving us. What?
Yeah.
He just left. Like, what the fuck? And they're in the other Jeep. What's he doing? Well, when you gotta go, you gotta go. Good shit, man. Good shit. All right. So 32, Despicable Me 3. I'm guessing you guys
I didn't
probably
even see that. Did that come? I didn't even know that came out.
Yeah, it came out in 2017.
I didn't even know they made a third.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said that's like they made a third one. Okay.
Yeah, it brought in 34 million. Another pirate movie, Stranger Tides. This time, the one they released in 2011, 45 million.
Didn't see it.
I don't remember if I saw that one. I probably did, but I don't remember it. Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Actually,
I actually like that.
As far as the Disney Star Wars franchise goes, and I'm excluding The Mandalorian, but as far as the cinematic adaptations,
a TV show.
Well, yeah, so I'm excluding The Mandalorian, but as far as the Disney Star Wars movies that they put out goes, Rogue One is probably my favorite.
Now, here's the thing about Rogue One for me. I actually like the movie because it gives a little filler about how the plans actually got the Princess Leia. And I know people love to bitch about, well, if they knew these, why did he put that plan in? They just, you can bitch about the poor exhaust all you want. I just like the fact that you could, and even if you want to bitch about the bad CGI Carrie Fisher, I don't give a shit. I like the fact that they give you a little extra story. They've expanded upon the universe, which you can even say this fits into, and I hate saying Star Wars Legends, the original pre-2013, before Disney fucked everything up and killed it and put a stake in it like a vampire. You could throw this even into that if this would have been made before the Disney acquisition. It probably still would have turned out the same. And ups and downs, plus and minuses, because you really feel bad. You want Jyn Erso to live. You actually end up liking her character, but shit, she dies. It happens. But it's still good because you get that little extra peek into how the plans got into the hands of Princess Leia. And people have been smart. They actually took what was the last, since the death of Jyn Erso and the Darth Vader scene, and they've incorporated it into Star Wars Episode 4, what do you want to call it? And it can, to an extent, plays near flawlessly if you edit it right. So that is the only Disney Star Wars movie I like without exception, because it has value and merit outside of the Disney name.
And actually, the one thing I liked about Rogue One the most, and it's going to be something weird because not a lot of people talk about it, at the very end, when the Death Star is about to test fire the super laser for the first time, I like how they have the dish oriented towards the planet's surface. Like, someone paid attention there.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's a very small attention to detail. It doesn't impact the movie in any way, shape, or form. It's just something I noticed that logistically makes sense.
Yeah. That's good soup.
And also, it's very ominous seeing that thing just come up over the horizon, and you see that big super laser dish pointed right at the surface of the planet, and you're like, oh, yeah, this isn't going to have a happy ending.
Wrong, just another nerd. Many Bothans died to bring us this information was Return of the Jedi.
But that brought in Rogue One, just to remind everybody, 1 billion. Like Stranger Tides had $1 billion there too. So I don't want anybody joining late and going, what? Only 56 million for Rogue One? That's insane. No, it's
well,
1
at least
billion.
it's not Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah. Whatever. Okay, so 29 is Pirates of the Caribbean. Again, man, these movies. No
Is it
wonder
the
they
first
keep
one?
doing them. This is Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah, that was pretty decent. I think that was the third one. Because I think that's the third one because it fulfills the legacy of William and his father, who was stuck in Davy Jones' locker.
Yeah, I got a jar of dirt, right? I got a jar of dirt. I love that part. Doku, what do you see any of the Caribbean movies?
Yeah, and my stance on them for all of those movies, with the exception of what was the fourth one?
Wasn't that At World's End?
I think so.
I think so. The first three, I enjoyed them. I thought there could be more world building, more character development, but all in all, solid movies. They all have this weird quirkiness about them that makes them charming in a very strange way. So the first three all are 8 or 9 out of 10 for me. I didn't see the last. Was there 1 or 2? Didn't they make a 5th one?
Yeah, they made like 5 or 6 of them.
Okay, well, I didn't see anything past the first 3 because I thought the story at that point was dead.
Same here.
All right. Let's see here. Number 28, Toy Story 3, 66 million. I like Tim Allen, man. I don't know. I've been watching Tim Allen since Home Improvement. I'm a Tim Allen fan.
Here's my thing about Toy Story 3. It again fulfilled a storyline. Andy grew up, went off to college, gave his toys to a kid who would appreciate them. That's what you do in real life. And I don't really give a shit about Toy Story, but I like that there's consistency.
Yeah, and he sure as hell didn't give him to that crazy kid Sid. You know.
Never saw the third Toy Story movie, so I cannot comment.
Oh, the first one is a classic, though.
Yeah.
Oh, the first one I loved, but I think I saw 2. I didn't see 3.
Next one is 27, Dark Knight Rises.
Eh.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the third one, right? I wasn't the biggest fan.
Yeah, it felt clumsy and rushed to me. I was not that big of a fan. It felt like a lot of build-up for a lot of nothing.
Think it made that much money for the name?
Probably. I mean, it was coming off the heels of Dark Knight and Heath Ledger, so I'll call it the Captain Marvel effect.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It roped in 84 million. And now we get to the Transformer movies. Number 26, Age of Extinction.
Hate them all.
I haven't
Can't stand any of them. I've only seen the first 3, and then I stopped because I was not going to waste my money. Can't stand any of them. They're all Michael Bay movies, and that's the only thing that needs to be said.
Didn't Michael Bay make some war movies or something? I know I used to like him as a director.
Yeah, we'll just say Michael Bay does well with sensationalism, but I don't accredit him that the writing for that. He likes explosions, and the CGI department isn't the worst thing in the world, but they are the definition of popcorn movies. The acting is crap. Shia LaBeouf is a terrible actor. The plot line is lazy. No, I'm not a fan. Like,
you know, the biggest thing that makes me mad about LaBeouf is I remember Even Stevens and shit, and I was still a kid watching that. You know, so like I kind of watched him. Me and him were probably about the same fucking age, for God's sake. You know, and like he turned into such a douchebag.
for real, I don't even. It's not that I dislike LaBeouf because of his politics. I dislike him for the reason you just said. He's a douche about it.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, you say the wrong thing to him, even if you didn't know he was a famous actor. Like, you bump into him on the street, he'll probably fucking shove you and have a fucking attitude.
Yeah, no, that's not the reason I dislike the Transformers movies. That's something completely different. But Shia LaBeouf, he's just an obnoxious prick. Like you think the troll in chief is bombastic and obnoxious and arrogant? Go spend 20 minutes with Shia LaBeouf and tell me what your opinion is.
Yeah. Okay, so it brought in 104 million. Jeez. Skyfall is number 25. Latest James Bond movie. It brought in 108 million. 2012. They haven't made another Bond movie since 2012. They used to make them every 3 years?
Yeah. I never had a problem with Daniel Craig as James Bond, but I was never the biggest James Bond person anyway, so I really can't say anything.
Honestly, the only thing to really say is it was a Bond movie that somewhat stuck to the spirit of what a Bond movie is. Again, it's a popcorn movie. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it's nothing to write home about.
All right. 24, Return of the King. 123 million. It was released in 2003. Is that the best of the original Lord of the Rings movies?
No. The Two Towers was the best. Return of the King was rushed, especially the last hour of it. Not a bad movie, but again, wasted potential.
When was the Battle of Helm's Deep? That was the second movie, huh?
Yeah, that's the Two Towers.
Yeah,
I like the Two Towers better. I think that Lord of the Rings Return of the King was fun, and I do enjoy it, but I would have to say Two Towers, then Fellowship, because there was more build to it, and it had its own distinct flavor. Return of the King was good, and I think it was really fun, but I don't think the ending had the powerful impact it was meant to have. It's not bad, but you know, it's 2-1-3 for me.
Yeah, it was supposed to, like, the books dive more into Frodo's PTSD issue, and that came from the author serving in World War I. I don't think the movie did that justice.
I agree, and that's why I say Return of the King had a lot of wasted potential. Fellowship, a bit on the slow side. They could have adjusted the pacing, but they did at least give us good character development. We had a somewhat impactful ending that influenced the rest of the story moving forward. But Two Towers is easily the best.
All right. Scrolling. Here you go. Number 23. It's a Brie Larson movie. Yay! 111 million. Captain Marvel.
Nope.
I think the critical drink. I think if anybody really wants to know good, decent, constructive criticism, go watch the Critical Drinker videos. I personally don't hate it for two specific reasons. One, I have a daughter in the Air Force, and we went and saw it together. Secondly, I think that Brie Larson is not the problem when she's acting. I think outside of it, she needs to get ass rammed a lot, and I volunteer. But it was the directors. They suck. They don't know what the hell they're doing, and I think it was the Birdman who brought up the point of why not just make the source of her powers the Power Stone and have her leave it on Marreg on her way to go defend other parts of the universe for then Peter Quill to find, which would, help it fit more into the MCU. I give it maybe a 6 out of 10. I think there's too much nostalgia on the 1990s, and I think too many people went full potato on certain things. And I think outside of the movie, Brie Larson has an attitude problem, but it itself is not as bad as Ghostbusters 2016, not by a long shot. Is it the weakest of every single MCU movie? Absolutely. And that's saying that's saying that a ton, considering that Edward Norton's version of the Hulk, while people like that at the time give him crap about it, was a lot more stronger in story and character development, which, again, there wasn't really much, but most people, you think they would have known the Hulk by then anyway, and that's that problem with that movie. But I digress.
Well, and I only have one thing to say in regards to Captain Marvel, and it's the same issue I have with Black Panther. It's very paint by the numbers. Is it bad? Objective opinion. Sure, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. That's your opinion. But it is a very cookie cutter comic book movie, especially when it comes. Yeah, it's very formulaic. It plays things safe, and it tried to rely on pandering to a certain ideological group to get its money, while also playing off the fact that Infinity War had just dropped. Other than that, I don't know. I'm not going to go as far as to say it was terrible, but I would rather watch it on some random fucking movie channel as opposed to paying money to go see it in theaters. It was nothing special.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying about Brie Larson. It's if you watch her performances in the the end trailer of Infinity War, and then how she was actually in Endgame, Captain Marvel, you like her. You like Captain Marvel as a character because they had good story, they had good directors, they had people who knew what they were doing, which goes back to exactly my point. The people that did the movie, the two writers and the director, they didn't know shit. And that's why it has the majority of the problems. Again, Brie Larson, decent actress. I've seen her, and I try not to hate her, but man, it takes a lot to watch her movies these days. But you go watch some of her other movies when she's not around the idiots that do fucking deep Marvel movies, not that bad. Again, it's the writers and directors. It's their fault.
Yeah, and I haven't really been watching any of the new Marvel-verse, so I really don't have an opinion. I just know the internet has been tearing that movie apart. Well, right up till the COVID thing happened, and then they kind of forgot about Brie Larson. But Brie Larson was getting massive loads of shit thrown her way for a very long time on YouTube.
That's because of her attitude.
Yeah. All right. And Captain Marvel, 111. Another Transformer movie, Dark of the Moon. I thought it was Dark Side of the Moon, but
it's Dark of the Moon, but again, no comment because I didn't see it.
Yeah, 123 mil. That's one of the Transformers movies you watched, Doku. What do you think? Because I think that's the third one.
I did see Dark Side of the Moon, and that one actually was probably, out of the three that I did see, that was actually probably my favorite because it was a little more heavy on the story and the narrative. It wasn't just boom, boom, big robots, explosions. That one actually did have a little bit more of a world building, plot line, character development to it. But it's, at the end of the day, they're all popcorn movies, but that's, in my opinion, the best of the three. And it did have kind of an eerie ominous feel to it because Dark Side of the Moon. So, yeah, spaceship on the moon that we can't see, and then we run across, and then giant robot shows up and wants to go fucking ham on shit. Yeah, no, that's how the first two should have been.
Well, no, and what I liked about the Transformer movies is they're not even cartoon. And yeah, you say just a bunch of robots fighting and explosions. That's all. What plot are you going to get from a Mattel toy line? You know that's what this is based off of? Everything.
No, I know. I know it's based off Mattel, and they're essentially trying to sell. Yeah, or wait, was it Hasbro?
Hasbro. Dude, I've got the reissue prints of Soundwave and the cassettes and Astro Train sitting right behind me, exact duplicates from the 85, 86 toy line. It's Hasbro.
Wait, didn't Hasbro and Mattel merge at some point in time?
No. Well, they probably did, but when it was original, it was Hasbro.
I'm not going to argue with you. You're probably right. I probably said the wrong company name.
No, it's okay. But I was pointing out that it was, for the sake of continuity, it was originally Hasbro. And the reason I say this is I can speak to great lengths on the 1986 movie, which I believe is better than the live action movies, mainly because that movie not only fills in gaps between seasons of the original cartoon, it helped progress the characters. And again, it's all a toy line, don't get me wrong, but it progressed characters and storylines for a newer generation of Transformers fans back then. So, and I don't believe they've captured the same magic.
Yeah, I would agree. And the simple fact is you could do cool stuff with something based off an idea, like G.I. Joe or Transformers, Ninja Turtles. They were all, well, I think Ninja Turtles was a cartoon first.
1984 Mirage Comics.
It was a comic book first, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not a toy line example, but G.I. Joe is, and so is.
And that was a toy line originally from the 1960s. So your assessment is completely correct.
And it entertains my kids, so I can't hate on the Transformer movies too much.
Again, there's nothing wrong with them. I just didn't see them, so I can't speak to them.
I saw you.
Yeah, and all right, so 123. Really, Aquaman is number 21. 153. 1,153,304,495.
Are we going? Well, when your kids settle down, so I can actually hear you. Are we basing these off of equal ticket payments, equal ticket sales? Are the older movies adjusted for inflation?
I believe so. Let me give you a link. It's from Newsday.com. Just a second, but I didn't see Aquaman. Did anybody see Aquaman? I remember the cartoon.
No, I own the movie, and I think it's decent. I think it has its flaws, but unlike a lot of the other DC movies, Wonder Woman and Aquaman succeed because they're standalones. And the reason that it made so much money is because all the women went to see it. And when all the girls go to see it and get horny, all the guys who are with them go to see it because they're going to get laid. So that's what happens with Wonder Woman. All the guys see it and they get horny, and all the girls get jealous, and they want what their man's going to give out. So that's why Wonder Woman made the money it made. So anyway.
Doku, if you saw it, what was the premise?
I actually didn't see Aquaman, and I have yet to see it. It is on my list, though.
It's an origin story. It tells basically where Aquaman came from, what he's about, and it portrays the Black Manta villain perfectly. I think it's a decent setup for his own series. I think everybody in it does a decent job at acting. There's a lot of cheddar to it, and it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's a fun movie. There's a little something for everyone, and it has a little bit of a love story. You find out about his mom, his dad, and the family ties, and why Ocean Master his brother has a problem with him. it, for what they put into the movie, it's decent. It's up there for especially for the DC movies. If Aquaman was a Marvel character, I'd say this would be about Guardians of the Galaxy level good. And those aren't exactly the best, but they're meant to be fun and enjoyed.
Yeah, and if this was more centered on DC movies, I have a leading question here that I do want to touch on sometime. But the idea that DC just can't make movies, like, why is that? I really want to approach that subject.
It's a parallel. I'll answer this very quickly. There is a skit that Channel Awesome did, and it's fucking hilarious. And I believe it's on their Daredevil video. And they were talking about, oh, Marvel's going to make these good movies, and you guys are going to be stuck with TV shows and animation. And of course, they're all just, spitting out shit that we've known has already happened. That seems to be the parallel, that DC can do TV shows and cartoons infinitely better than Marvel, while Marvel can blow you away and be completely competent in the movie department. And DC sucks at it, currently at least.
Yeah, I can't remember. See, I disagree with you on the newer Superman. I can't remember a good Superman since fucking Horse Boy, Christopher Reeves. Sorry.
What'd you call him?
The original Superman movies.
Oh, what did you call him? Are you referring to the fact that he nearly died after his horse threw him off? And
yes, is it too soon? I figured.
Yeah, it's damn right it's too soon. It's always too soon for that kind of shit. And I'm not going to chide you, but I'll tell you why. Christopher Reeve was one of those people that not only did Superman make his career, he was okay with it. And even though he had a problem with being typecast, he was still able to do other stuff. And he inspired generations of people. And he liked every single person that played Superman after him. He liked Dean Cain. He liked Tom Welling. He liked Henry Cavill. And he even liked, and I think he would have liked Tyler Hoskins had he met him. But he met all those people in one point of his life or another, and they will tell you that Christopher Reeves was a genuinely good person. And even though he's recognized as Superman and he was better in other things, he didn't bitch about it in the long run. So yeah, it's a little damn too soon.
All right.
And again, this goes back to the premise of DC does stuff nowadays better on TV. Smallville being the example of doing Superman right, although he stayed in high school too damn long, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really did like Smallville.
So really, it's not an unfair assessment for you to say, I can't think of a good Superman since the original one. That's fair, because honestly, very hit and miss. And he is better on TV, whether it's Dean Cain, Tom Welling, or Tyler Hoskins. So not an unfair assessment.
Yeah, I even like... what was it? The one in the 90s. Lois and Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was all right.
That was Dean Cain.
Okay, so number 20 is Captain America Civil War, 153. I didn't see it, but I was told it was pretty good. Is it?
I think for what it is, it's okay. And I think that, like a few of the other movies on our list, suffered from the hype train because they were reintroducing Spider-Man for the first time since everybody had a problem with Andrew Garfield.
Are you there, Doku? Can you talk? What do you think about Civil War?
Captain America Civil War, for what it is and how it fits into the MCU, it was good. But if you're a fan of the Civil War comic series, it is in no way, shape, or form the same. And because I am a fan of the comic series, I thought it should have been called Avengers Disassembled. Using the Civil War mantra for it is very misleading. It has nothing to do with that. But all in all, that aside, it wasn't the worst movie that Marvel's ever put out, but it's a lot of hype for a name that deserves something a lot better than just one installment. So, personally,
it's probably one of the weaker Captain America movies, that's for sure.
Oh, it is, in my opinion, it is the weakest Captain America movie, and probably one of the probably one of the weakest Marvel movies they've put out. It's in the top 5 weakest, but
Yeah.
it's still entertaining. They have the paint by number strategy down good enough that even their crap is still enjoyable. So, if you're only invested in the MCU, watch it. It fits in. It progresses the story. It's fine. The acting's fine. The writing's fine. But it's nothing special.
Oh, okay. I won't go out of my way to watch it then. All right. Number 19, Minions. That's a cartoon I actually don't remember watching.
I didn't see it.
It has Michael Keaton in it though. I didn't know that.
Isn't that a spinoff of the Despicable Me thing?
Yeah.
159. Sandra Bullock's in it too. Sandra Bullock, John Hamm, and Michael Keaton. Interesting.
It's all voice actors. It's all voice acting. I didn't see it because I had no investment in it. It's strictly a kids movie, and I think the higher up the list we're going to go, we're going to see a shit ton of kids movies that parents are too stupid and lazy to discipline them, and they only take them to movie theaters to shut them up because they won't stop whining.
You know, you can now rent theater releases through your cable box.
So
I'm just saying that's how Hollywood's making money now also.
of course they are.
Yep. Number 18, Iron Man 3. I have seen the first Iron Man. I don't remember if I saw anything after that.
3 was garbage. Iron Man 3 was a horrible movie.
Really? 3 was garbage?
Yeah, no. Iron Man 3 was a bad movie. Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Civil War, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they all have something to bring to the table. Iron Man 3 was it didn't fit. It just felt like a standalone movie that has absolutely no bearing on the MCU. The storyline has nothing to do with the comics. They even go out of their way to completely alter the Mandarin story arc. What they did with AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, none of it. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie. It feels like a standalone. Someone had an idea and they go ahead and tossed money at it because they knew it was going to make money. Not a fan. Just
remember that the people that go to see these movies do not have the extensive comic book knowledge that the three of us present. That's why it made money, and that's why they did what they did. I thought it was a mishmash movie. I think the first one and the second one were better. I think the third one brought only to the table of the final growth of Tony Stark saying, I don't really need my toys, which did present itself in regards to the last 2 Avenger movies.
No, I understand and I get it.
And he suffered from his PTSD. That was the big thing. But I think there was too much cheese on the cheese and ham sandwich.
No, I don't disagree. And again, it was one of those movies where it's coming off the heels of the success of Avengers and Iron Man 1 and 2. It was going to make money, but it was a sub-bar product compared to everything else the MCU was putting out at that point in time, which is why it's probably my least favorite movie that they've done.
Yeah, which is why I said there's too much cheese on the ham and cheese sandwich, which is Iron Man 3.
Yep, I'm in agreement.
All right. 17, The Fate of the Furious.
I've never seen any of those movies, so don't ask me.
238. Yeah, did you watch the Fast and Furious franchise, Doku?
I've seen the first 3. The second was the best, and I gave up on it after that because it's popcorn movies that I don't have the money to spend or the time to waste.
Yeah, I stopped after Tokyo Drift. I thought that movie was the worst movie I've ever seen.
That's where I stopped too. Yeah. That's why I stopped watching them.
I don't know why. I just hate that fucking movie. Incredibles 2. Whoa. Yeah, I don't know. Somehow that number looks smaller than the last number. Whatever. I don't care. According to them, it's number 16. Incredibles 2. Anybody watch The Incredibles?
Yeah, nope. I watched them back to back, and I think I I think Incredibles 2 would have been better served if Brad Bird didn't wait so goddamn long to make the movie. If he would have made it 2 or 3 years after the original, not only would it stayed more in people's memory and done better, but I think the premise would have been the same and maybe presented slightly different. I think if you watch them back to back, they're fine. Don't ever let it be a standalone movie, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's about Mrs. Incredible. It's SJW shit." No, it's simply, or literally takes place after the first movie a little while later, and it gives more further character development to Elastigirl, which that's what you do with good movies. The first one was about Mr. Incredible and his problems. The second one was about his wife and her problems. And since they're married, you know, if you've ever been married or an actual adult, you kind of want to know what's going on with the other person and not stay one-sided. Not bad, but it could have been done 3 years after the original and done better.
Any thoughts, Doku?
I haven't seen the first or the second, so I can't comment.
All right. 15. The 2017 version of Beauty and the Beast, the second most expensive musical ever made.
Boring.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't feel like being tortured that year.
I didn't see it either, so again, I can't comment on this one.
The only reason I ever saw it is because I used to go into Family Video and rent videos and DVDs and essentially burn them off. And they had that shit playing all the time because people liked the movie. And I kept my mouth shut. And they said to me one day, "Dade, why do you not like this movie?" And I said, "Well, because I grew up with the original as a teenager and I thought it was better done." And a lot of people said, "That's fair." And one guy's like, "No, you just hate it because it's live action." I'm like, "No, I don't like it because I think it's live action and it's boring. The original was better. It came out at a better time." And then I explained to him that the triumvirate, basically there were 4 movies that came out almost in a row that were fucking great. And they, you know, unfortunately led to the monster that is now Disney. But The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Hercules were fucking great. And to remake them as live action movies, you suck because it doesn't have the magic. And a story.
Goku, you got something?
No, I think that's a valid point, and yeah, those are the 4 movies that put Disney on the map for me, with the addition of Lion King in there. But yeah, remaking these things, it just goes to show you that Disney's run out of ideas and their writers are lacking talent. But
And skill.
yeah, there we go. That's my opinion on Disney.
All right. 14, we're probably going to skip by real quick. Frozen, 276. So 1,276,000,000, blah, blah, blah.
Do you want to let it go?
Dear Frozen, thank you for the Rule 34 cannon fodder.
Oh, no.
Oh, I do not want to look that up at all.
I'm just being an asshole.
I have watched that movie more times than I can count, thanks to my daughters. And no, just no, let it go. Let it go. Into the dumpster.
Oh, poor Dodge.
Oh, and now I'm being scolded by my daughter because I said we should throw it away, and she thinks I'm talking about her coffee.
No. Just tell her that there are 2 other adults that have kids and nieces that also watch that movie, and it's not gonna go away, sadly. I mean, anytime soon.
Next one on the list is number 13, the 2015 version of Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Isn't that the one where the dude is the raptor fucking whisperer?
Yeah, pretty much. Go back in the video to regard my previous statements about Jurassic Park after the first 3 movies.
Yeah, I think the one you're thinking of is Jurassic World, and it's a cookie cutter Hollywood popcorn flick. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's nothing praiseworthy. So If you're bored and you see it on TV, go ahead and watch it if you have 2 hours to kill.
Yeah, I thought that was weird that he was, yeah, whatever. All right, Last Jedi, number 12.
Trash.
332 million. So yeah, The Last Jedi.
Got no money from me.
Trash. I refuse to talk about it. I've spent way too much time talking about it. It was garbage. It's easily the worst thing that Disney has ever done, especially regarding an IP that is well recognized across the world. And Ryan Johnson is a fucking moron.
I can't do Mickey Mouse's voice, or I would do a Mickey Mouse. We still got paid.
let me explain the entire Disney trilogy of Star Wars. The first one is Star Wars. We killed Han Solo. The second one is Star Wars. We killed Luke Skywalker. The third one is Star Wars. We killed Princess Leia. Yet they somehow consider it part of the Skywalker trilogy. Disney, come after me, find me, and then I will screw you over and make you find every copy in any physical form of those 3 movies and have them destroyed, deleted, made non-existent. You suck. You killed Star Wars. Rogue One belongs deservingly in the pre-Disney universe. Bite me.
You know, I'm with that idea. We could dump all those copies wherever they buried the Atari ET.
That was a rumor. That's for another topic.
I had to. All right. Another Harry Potter at number 11. Deathly Hallows Part 2. It made $1,341,000,000. We talked about Harry Potter enough, so I'm going to jump up to 10. Doku, let's start with you. This movie is Marvel. It made $1,344,966,560. Black Panther.
Yeah, again, not the worst thing Marvel has done, but very formulaic, paint by the numbers, and the only reason it made money is because the reason a lot of these Hollywood movies make money, they pander to a certain demographic, there's a lot of media attention on it, people go see it, and, well, just to hammer my point home, who the fuck cares about Black Panther anymore? Anyone?
I did not watch it. Dave, did you see it?
I own every Marvel movie simply for the fact of it's part of my minor bit of OCD. If it's part of a series or a saga, I'm going to have it in my collection simply to complete it. Critical Drinker, Mahler, and even E:R talk about this movie better than I ever could. My only problem was Suri, the 18-year-old pain in the ass bitch who went on to go into Infinity War, act like she could school either Tony Stark or Bruce Banner of all people about how to build the Vision and how he would work. She is a bitch character, and she has, I don't care what the comics say, she is a garbage character. You could take her out of that movie and it would be just the same, considered above average. I think that Black Panther himself is fine. I think there are too many problems with the story, but it's enjoyable if you mute Siri's voice or take her out of the picture. She contributes nothing. She's a little brat. And in the real world, she would be smacked around for mouthing off to a king, regardless if she's his sister or not. End of story.
All right. I didn't see it, so I have zero opinion. Number 9, Avengers: Age of Ultron. 1,405,413,868. Came out in 2015. Yeah, you guys like the Avenger movies? I have not seen any of these Marvel movies, really, guys. So Marvel is your area.
Doku, take the lead on this one. I've got a bit of bevies to say about this movie. They're not negative. I just think it's a little more, I think it would take shorter time than what you would have to say.
Okay. Avengers: Age of Ultron. And you'll notice this theme popping up with Marvel movies. As far as it fits within the MCU, it works. it's not the best thing in the world. You have to remember when Age of Ultron came out, this was very brief or very shortly after Disney had acquired the franchise. So I appreciate the there are no strings on me, very creepy tone that Ultron does. It fits for the storyline where we are currently at that point with the rest of the greater MCU. Now, in regards to the actual comic books, it can't hold a candle. And Ultron was very, very downplayed. The Avengers didn't have nearly as much of a difficult problem with him as they would have had in the comics. But we run into the issue of Hank Pym, and not something I'm not getting into. Ultron was treated as a one-off villain, which really annoyed me. It feels like Ultron only existed as a way to introduce Vision and forward the Infinity War plot arc, whereas Ultron in the comic books is arguably more terrifying than Thanos, and I feel like it's a mistreatment of the character, and again, wasted opportunity. But if you have nothing better to do for 2.5 hours, go ahead and watch it. It's kind of slow towards the middle. All in all, 6.5 out of 10.
I only have one word for this movie: perplexing. That's it. Perplexing. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I just think it's a bit perplexing. It's the weakest of the Avenger movies. It's not bad, but it's perplexing that it's perplexing in the way they've introduced the characters, how they handled some characters, specifically Baron Zemo, which is one of Captain America's greatest enemies ever. But they did a good job with keeping it realistic. It did help build up the Civil War, which is a misnomer, if anything else. And it did give us Scarlet Witch, thank God. And it's perplexing that they started a romantic arc with Hulk and Black Widow that eventually never went anywhere. I don't know why they even bothered. But the plus side is it does represent an age properly. It is an Age of Ultron of a certain amount of time that something takes place with a specific character. And I think it really is a semi-political piece about governments and power and being able to act as free agents, which was referred more to in regards to Civil War itself. It's a perplexing movie because of what it sets up and how it sets up things, but its execution is not as good as it should be. That's why I find it perplexing. I would give it a 6 out of 10. It's not bad. It's not great. It builds up to some things better, but its execution is weak. James Spader is also wasted. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It has its place within the MCU, but it is. I do honestly view it as a popcorn placeholder movie.
Yeah, and like I said, I have no opinion. Another Fast and Furious movie, Furious 7. It made it's number 8. It made $1.5 billion. I'm gonna skip by it. I didn't see it. I doubt anybody else on the panel did. It's another racing movie, whatever.
Yeah, didn't watch it. Can't comment.
Yeah.
Didn't see any of them.
Number 7, The Avengers.
The original?
Yeah. 1.519. So it only beat Furious 7 by $2 million, basically.
That movie is why I will never see movies in 3D again. It really hurt me. It was too much visually to be 3D. My eyes did not play nice with it. It's a good movie. It's still, in fact, you can still go back and watch it, even if you know what's coming afterwards. But that movie ruined 3D for me. I'm sorry. That's my only problem with it.
Thank God I didn't watch the 3D version.
Oh no shit! It was really a lot visually. It's action packed, and that's just like a continual. For me, it was a continual visual blur.
Oh, I can only imagine the last act of that movie where the Chitauri are flying around in New York. That would probably have given me a headache, and yeah, just no thanks. But I will give the first Avengers an 8 out of 10, and the reason I'm bumping it up is because it was kind of a watershed movie where you took all these characters that have been kind of floundering around in the cinematic universe. Marvel had tried before to get something going off, and leave it to the Russo brothers to come in and actually put together a long form story arc that had the culmination of its first act in the movie we know as Avengers. It didn't give us like a huge big bad. We had the Chitauri, we had the characters that have already been established, Thor, Hulk, Captain America. We brought in Loki, which was a good addition. Black Widow, Hawkeye, Iron Man. And they played off of each other really well. It's something we never saw before. They didn't give us, a Doctor Doom or a Galactus or a Thanos right at the beginning of the MCU proper. For what it did, it was a very nice bow on top, so to speak. Execution, I think, was the best they probably could have done at the time, not realizing how successful the MCU was actually going to be. And it led to Disney paying Marvel a shit ton of money to acquire the IP. 8 out of 10. Solid hit.
In retrospect, I only have one problem with that movie. It should have been Ed Norton. Mark Ruffalo, you suck, and come to Davenport and get in the ring with me at the local boxing club and do something about it if you don't like it.
I don't know if anyone that likes Mark Ruffalo at this point in time.
All right. We are almost to the top 5. Number 6, Jurassic World. 1.6 billion dollars. Jurassic World is when he's the raptor wrangler. We already kind of touched upon it when we talked about the last one. Number 5 is another Avengers movie. Give me a fucking break. Infinity War.
If Endgame is not top of this list, I will be surprised.
I think Infinity War was actually the best one, and I say that for a very specific reason. Infinity War not only capitalized on what the first Avengers movie did, but it gave us something that the MCU hadn't given us prior to that point. It was dark. They lose. I know a lot of people hated this because it's a superhero movie. The good guys are supposed to win. You clearly do not know what Thanos is or what the Infinity Gauntlet does or what his modus operandi is, despite his motivation being changed from the comics. It still gives you that very dark, this is the big bad we've been leading up to this whole point in time. You are going to lose.
Well, if this is anything, if these are the same people that say, well, the Avengers should have won, and then yet they watched The Dark Knight and thought that was great. Technically, Batman lost in that big time. So,
yeah, he did. And it's a very good change of pace considering what the MCU had given us, because you can't tell me that you've been hinting at this villain for the better part of a decade and not have him come in. And I don't even think Thanos was the strongest part of that movie. It was the Black Order. They played a really good role in it, and it helps tie all of those characters together, and it still gives you a compelling story while maintaining a good pace and a good tone. I liked it. That's my favorite out of all the Avengers movies, and my favorite out of the entire MCU. Second, maybe only to Guardians of the Galaxy, which I like for personal reasons.
Here's my take on it. I think Avengers Infinity War is about the best Avengers movie, mainly because of everything you said, but the fact that they didn't focus on the Avengers, they focused on a lot of other stuff and how the Avengers reacted. It also had the payoff of, even though you knew, and I bitched about this on Twitter a long time ago. I said, yeah, all you got to do is read the Infinity War comics from back in the 90s. Thanos is going to win, but they did it better. They did it differently, and I like the way they did it. you knew Thanos was going to win, but this was really the build up to Thanos winning. And I think that's why it's a good movie, because it's not about the Avengers. It's about how everybody else handles themselves up to the, point that Thanos wins. It's Doctor Strange. It's Tony Stark as a person. It's this person as a person instead of the Avengers and their, Iron Man and Cap and all that other shit. The other reason that it's great is it brings Thor's character arc to its near finale. And Endgame, which I'm sure I will get to this, while people get pissed at Fat Thor, they are choosing to not accept the fact that Thor has, by this point, lost everything, and that he's trying to avenge everybody without losing hope. And he fails at it miserably. This may be considered the Empire Strikes Back of the Marvel movies, but it's so much more, because everything that has been built up gets a payoff. Everything gets paid off in this movie, only to be resolved in the last Avengers movie. And I'm going to say this because I miss the fact that Ant-Man is in this movie. I miss the fact that people don't recognize Ant-Man and Ant-Man as the Wasp and the Wasp as probably some of the best Marvel movies, because they're very lighthearted and they can get dark. They have serious subject matter, but they try to keep you enthused. And those two movies helped build this movie up from the sidelines, and which is then paid off in Endgame. And I think this is probably the reason that Endgame, Infinity War is the better of the two, is because everything, even if you don't like the characters, contributes something to this movie. And it has one of the most annoying fucking villains in the Marvel universe, Ebony Maw. And when you get to see him die, so satisfying. As James Franco said in Spider-Man 2, so good.
All right. Like I said, I haven't seen it. So number 4 at 2,054,708,260. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. JJ. Yay.
Juju Abrams doesn't know how to do anything original. In fact, he's basically had to. His son Max can't do anything original either. If it wasn't for his daddy, Max wouldn't be having a job. The reason I have a problem with JJ Abrams is he's overrated. He doesn't do anything original, and anything original that he's done, unlike Joss Whedon, he doesn't complete. Lost was fucking garbage. Alias didn't complete itself as good as it should. In fact, he pretty much canceled Alias just to go do Lost. Juju Abrams, you don't have skill, buddy. You have a name. You have connections. If you didn't have any of those, your ass would be working at a McDonald's most likely. And your wife, who Katie McGrath from Supergirl, who plays Lena Luthor, she's too good for you.
Your thoughts, Doku?
And The Force Awakens. If I wanted to waste 2.5 hours of my life and the 30 minutes it took me to wait in line and get tickets just so I could see a rehashing of A New Hope that was a shittier movie than A New Hope, then yeah, it was good by those standards. In other words, it was trash and it was a waste of time.
Yeah, I did see it. Not impressed. I like the remastered original trilogy the best, but so does everybody.
Boop.
Well, I like the remastered stuff.
You and I are one of these days going to have a separate live stream of why Jedi Rocks does not deserve to be in Return of the Jedi.
But when it comes to J.J. Abrams, my problem with him is simple. First, before we get to Star Trek here, he doesn't know how to finish a story. We learned that with Lost. Okay? He can't finish a story. He could build up a story. He could raise tension. And then he's like, oh shit, I wrote myself into a box. That's my problem with JJ. Other than him completely signing on to do Star Trek and then switching over to the fucking enemy. Fuck you. Every Trekkie fucking fan in the universe gave a universal up yours when he did that bullshit. But you know, it is what it is, and you don't see any Trek films on this list. Number three, it fell all the way to number 3. It was number 1 for over 20 years. Titanic. Go ahead, your hatred for Titanic. Anybody?
I got no hatred, and I'll tell you why. I laughed my ass off when I met my wife and we saw this, and she goes, "Let's go see Titanic." I go, "The boat sinks. What's the tell?" And she said, "Well, let's go see it anyway." It's a chick flick. Don't get me fucking wrong, but here's what's great about it. It's a character story. You know, and despite the historical inaccuracies, it's a human interest story. It draws you in. You want to see Jack succeed. You want to see him and Rose together. Yeah, that's very formulaic, but it also plays off historical events. It does romanticize them, but it does it so well. And goddamn Billy Zane. If you hate Titanic, you hate Billy Zane because he was the best fucking bastard in that movie. He was a privileged, snobby asshole who would basically be one of Hollywood's elites today. His character of Cal would basically be Mark Ruffalo of today. His Cal character was the Mark Ruffalo on that fucking ship with an attitude and a dick up his ass. Fucking Billy Zane, you beautiful bald bastard. If I ever did a Superman movie, you'd be fucking Lex Luthor. You are wonderful. He is one of the best parts of that movie. Fucking Kathy Bates' Molly Brown was another part. There are just so many good characters in this movie. I can't hate on it. I know how it's going to end. I know it's romanticizing certain things about life, but God damn it, if it's just not such a good, it's a very well written and directed movie. James Cameron actually deserves my praise, unbridled praise for once. Does it have flaws? Yeah, but God damn it, it's a really good movie. Even if you know the boat's going to sink because it's a human interest story. No hate for Titanic, not even to this day. Oh, by the way, great fucking dance scene in the underbelly of the ship. Beautiful music.
Yeah, I'll get to my favorite scene, but Doku, your thoughts on Titanic? You've seen it, right? I think everybody in America has seen it.
Yeah, no, I can't say anything bad about it either. Yes, is it a flawed movie? Yeah, like most works of art, it's flawed in certain ways, and art is ultimately subjective. But as far as movies go, it's still probably one of the best, and I would argue probably the last creative thing that was done well that Hollywood ever did before they started pulling off reimaginings or rehashes or reboots and live action retellings. Like, no, I can't knock it. It's well written. The acting is great. The directing is good. The cinematography is good. The music score is good. 8.5, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, 9.5 easily.
Yeah, my favorite part is it's really simple too. The ship is going down and the band starts to play that song. You know what I mean? That was my favorite moment of that movie. And yeah, it is a total chick flick. You're absolutely right.
Well, actually, that's my favorite scene as well, Dodge, because when the band starts playing on the deck and you see the people hopping in the lifeboats, that's when you know, like, we're reaching the crescendo, figuratively and literally. Like, you know shit's going down. Like, you're done. Like, this is that moment you're waiting for. And again, timing executed perfectly. Great music, great acting.
All right, we're in the top 2 here. Endgame. There you guys go. Yeah, what do you think?
I think this list is flawed because if you're going to say Avatar's number 1, bullshit.
It does say Avatar is number 1, yes.
And that's a lie because Endgame made more money technically.
Yeah, Endgame actually beat out Avatar specifically from the Chinese audience. But
I think what they're I think why the numbers look weird because the numbers on Endgame are lower than the numbers on Titanic, but I think or they're barely higher. I don't know. I think what they're doing is inflation correction in this article. So
even for inflation correction, Endgame stomped the shit out of Avatar.
Yeah, Endgame actually did beat Avatar. Let's call this a case of access media.
Okay.
But no, Endgame, wasn't a fan, actually. Didn't like it. I thought it was a very... I can appreciate the love letter, like in the same way that a lot of creators, when you reach the end of a story and there's like fan theories out there, or a group of fans wants to see something happen, like there was a lot of that fan service to the movie. It was the end of an era. It was kind of a love letter to the fans. It was them having fun with it. The acting was fine. The music was fine. But as far as an ending to a long form story like the MCU was up until, well, Endgame, it felt very lazy. It wasn't satisfying, in my opinion. It was, okay, we know they're gonna reverse everything in some way, shape, or form. There's the weird time travel arc.
Don't even get me started on the fucking Hulk saying anything about time travel, yet dismissing Back to the Future, because that's a 20-minute tirade I'm not invested in tonight.
No, well, again, this is my point about the movie. There was a lot of fan service. It felt like it was essentially a fan fiction movie. It didn't feel the same, coming off the same type of weight or gravity that we had with Infinity War. It felt very flat and out of place, and like, hey everybody, good job. Let's give everyone a pat on the backs. Here's your Scarlet Witch and Vision thing. The Hulk is dating a guy, and here's some time travel, and yeah, Thanos is barely in this movie, and then we'll do some stuff with Nebula, and oh, Black Widow dies, and yay, there we go. We're done. See you. Like, it felt very flat to me. It felt very lazy. It felt like I would equate Endgame to Infinity War the same way that I would equate 50 Shades of Grey to Twilight.
Oof.
all right. I didn't see it. So
Oh, you didn't see it. Okay, so now I get to have my say.
oh yeah, go for it.
I slightly disagree with you on certain things, Doku. There is a personal reason for this. I didn't get to see this until after my father died last year, and I needed to see this. There is one scene that is so touching, and it will stay with me for... There's two scenes, actually. After my dad died, I put on my Facebook... I quote Tony Stark to Howard Stark. I used to think my father was hard on me, but looking back, all I remember is the good stuff. So Endgame to me, while it has its massive flaws, it does end everything. I think it could have been done better, but it does bring a bow on top. It does show homage to everything that came before it. To me, it's a satisfying ending. But my father died. My two daughters came back from the military for the services, and I was crying like a little baby. And all I said to them was, I love you both 3,000. So Endgame, while not the perfect movie, and I can see why it made what it did, it was really hype. To me, it will stay in my top 10 personally because of the loss of my father. And it helped me through a very difficult and slightly suicidal time.
That's fair, and I can't take that away from you, and that's a good thing.
And I think with Tony dying, that I reflected upon that, and the MCU for me has ended. And my father was not the biggest superhero person. My mother and I, we can talk this shit all day, 24/7, and have different levels of conversation. Hell, my mom and I, we love to talk about time travel and the Flash and everything else because my uncle was a massive comic fan, and that's how I got into things. That's how I learned to read. But my dad also understood a good action movie, and I think this would have had Endgame and Infinity War would have had Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, John Wayne levels of action, and he would have liked that. But for me, it's not. Infinity War will always be better, but for me, it brings something to the table for everyone. I like the realism in the fact that this is what would happen if this happened. And I equate it to what if the Wuhan flu would have done this? How would we have moved on? And Joe Russo played a gay character in there. It wasn't the Hulk. And he had the boyfriend. And as a father of a lesbian daughter and a lesbian stepdaughter now, I get that. And I think that's great. I don't think they shoved it in there. I think it was done tastefully. And I think everything played out not as well as it should have, but decently enough. And Captain America got his just desserts. And
that's actually the one thing. That's the one thing I do want to touch on. The best thing that happened in the MCU was Captain America finally got that dance.
The only thing that hurts me more than my father dying and this movie being equated to that is Pepper and Morgan lost a husband and a father. They are without Tony, as is the world in that universe. And I felt bad for Morgan as a character because I relate to that. I get that. But I also get it from the other point of view that I now get to say to my kids every day if I want, I love you 3000, and I will always mean it. Because my dad raised me, gave me everything he could, just as Tony Stark, for the good or bad of the character, for the strong or weak of the movies, gave what he could to protect everybody he loved, which even was Captain America when they could not see goddamn eye to eye. So Endgame to me is story-wise and structurally weaker than Infinity War, but it's also satisfying because the real fans will tell you things have now come to an end. Anything else is just, you should either have as a prequel, which I think the Black Widow movie is going to be, and I still want to see that. I'm excited. And anything else after is now either fluff or not, doesn't matter. That is my take on Endgame.
And that's why I call Endgame, I say it's weak from a narrative perspective, considering the larger context of the MCU, but that is my criticism from the storytelling and character development in it, because it's a love letter. Like, that's really what Endgame is. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the MCU ended when Thanos snapped. What Endgame is it's bringing everything back together, and it's giving us closure to these different character arcs that have been built up for the better part of a decade. And it's giving us the ending that people who are bitching about Infinity War wanted, because you want to see the good guys end, but you want to see them get their bittersweet, sometimes happy endings, some passing of the torch moments. There's a few things that I will say they feel kind of shoehorned in there, but it's nothing too obnoxious. I will say getting to see Tony Stark's character arc come to an end in a way that is both tragic, but in a way rewarding, because you see like he is willing to go ahead and make that sacrifice for the greater good, which you go back to the original Iron Man movie, if Tony Stark has come full circle in his character from being essentially a Lord of War.
A selfish bastard.
Yeah, for being Lord of War and an arrogant playboy to having his PTSD to essentially making the greatest sacrifice ever. Like, that's a great end to that character arc. And the same thing with Steve Rogers, where you see him finally, he gets that dance at the end. He goes ahead and decides he's going to pass the torch off over to Sam. Like, all of that to me was great. It's just the movie as a whole felt a little weak. But those main core characters, it all felt right. Like, it's just the larger story format I thought could have been done a lot better for the runtime. And I still don't like the time travel thing, but I get it serves a purpose. So I'll give it a pass. Endgame, in my opinion, I'll be generous and say 7 out of 10.
Yeah, story. If I remove myself from the personal events that I had to deal with during that time, story-wise, I go about 7.5. I am really a big fan of seeing all the women in the MCU team up and beat the shit out of people because they're such underrated characters. And I think Pepper Potts probably got the best shit out of it because it's like it's like, yes, finally Pepper Potts gets to do shit. You know, she's such an underplayed character, and she really is Tony's heart and soul. And I was glad to see her in the rescue armor and kick some ass. And you have to give me this. One of the most pervy yet funniest scenes in the entire MCU came out of Endgame, where Peter Parker gets his ass blown to near bits, is huddled, scared for his life. Captain Marvel, this is why I go back to saying, yes, if the good director, the good writer, the good script, Brie Larson is great at her being an actress. This shows it. She has such the fun saying to Peter Parker, "Hi, Peter Parker, got something for me?" And Peter's like, I don't know how to take that.
Actually, I will admit that did get a chuckle out of me. I have my issues with Brie Larson. I have my issues with Captain Marvel, specifically the Carol Danvers iteration of the character. I'm much more a fan of Miss Marvel, but that really goes back to the comic books and the writing. Nothing to do really with character design or anything like that. But that scene did get a chuckle out of me because that was played off so well. And that's probably some of the best acting Brie Larson ever did. And it was only a one-liner, but it was great. Well, I just want to see more of that.
Well, again, it goes back to her involvement in the entire movie, because if you look at her when she meets the Avengers and War Machine says, "Well, where have you been?" You know, he goes, "We're all about that superhero life, but where have you been?" And she basically says, "Hey, look, not to be rude, but I've been out there doing something because they don't have the Avengers." And it's like, that's good character development and growth right there. It shows that she has grown as a person, more of a protector, more of a little bit defensive, but still a team player in this movie. And then when everything happens, she's like, "I have to go back to being militant. I've cut my hair. I'm sorry if I have to feel like an ice cold bitch, but now I have to go back to doing what I was meant to do, which is be a protector." And as a protector, you're not always the nicest person on the planet, but she still has good rapport with the characters. And then when she comes in and helps saves people, she isn't the most superpowered character, because Thanos was beating her ass without using the power gem. He just basically said, "I'm starting to lose." You know, that's why he said, you know, "Rain fire, do this," because he was realizing he didn't have the knowledge and wisdom that his original version had, started to lose. Carol came down, started stomping his ass, rightfully so, because he's overconfident and arrogant. And then he realized, "I have to end this because I'm going to effectively lose," and smacks her one. And while I did cheer that she got her ass kicked, because, you know, Brie Larson, it shows that Captain Marvel isn't the powerhouse that people think she is, and that there's always the bigger fish. And that shows good writing, good storytelling, good directing, good execution, and Brie Larson did the job well. So people out there, you want to hate on Brie Larson, I'm sorry, I got nothing for you.
And actually, I've made this point before when it comes to the MCU, despite what the Russo brothers say. Nope, I'm sorry, I'm gonna disagree. Just going off what I've seen in the movies and how the characters are presented, the strongest character in the MCU was Vision, and now it's Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is the strongest. She almost one-shotted Thanos.
That's exactly, and that's my point. He said, "Rain fire," and the other guy's like, "Sorry about a trope." He's like, "Do it." He was getting killed. He was literally getting, it was like watching Magneto in any of the X-Men movies close his hand and some shit would be, it's like in X-Men 3, for as bad as you want to say that movie, but Magneto's like, "Nope, close my hand, toss this shit away." That's exactly what Scarlet Witch was doing. She was the most OP fucking character, and that was because of her hex magic and her emotion. And Thanos knew he was gonna die. That's why he called rain fire. And I never thought Thanos was the most powerful. I thought he was the most dedicated to his pursuit and his goals, which he was, more so than even Tony Stark, more so than Captain America, more so than anybody else, and more so even than Thor. Now, if you want to talk emotionally strongest, that was Thor. But that's for another time and another reason. But Scarlet Witch in that movie and in the MCU, who she was never really given the opportunity, was the most physically strongest.
Oh yeah,
Well-
I don't disagree. Scarlet Witch was OP as crap.
Oh yeah, and if she wanted to, she could just sneeze wrong and basically turn and basically just shoot Captain Marvel halfway back across the planet and go, oops.
Why do you think I want to see them do a House of M so badly now that they have all the property rights to it? I would love to see House of M adapted if they do it correctly. But the Russos said that they're kind of done with the MCU. So considering what Disney's done with Star Wars, I'm a little more apprehensive than I might have been in the past.
All right, so number 1 is Avatar, according to this list. You guys have it contested. I don't care.
Take everything that I've said about Titanic, reverse it. That's Avatar.
Well, no, I wanted to actually, because everybody and their dog is seeing Avatar. I saw it like 10 years late, but I did see it. I read an article the other day, and they were saying Avatar is one of those movies about the Great White Hope. The whitey comes and saves us. The poor native blue people. They needed rescuing.
Space.
Yeah, God, we're gonna be here for another fucking 30 minutes if we go down this rabbit hole.
Well, you will. I'm just gonna ignore you guys because I've already said my piece.
Well, no, I was confused reading that article, and they brought up a list of movies that they say are the same way. I never saw Avatar that way. I thought it was kind of a weird movie. I never got really super into it. It took me forever to even see it. My wife, she had it laying around from before me and her even got together, and I popped it in one day and watched it. You know what I mean?
That's pretty much how I was. I didn't see it because I'm one of those people that if you make something so popular, I automatically turn against it. And then I just said, I've never seen this. I want to see what all the hype is about. And I said, okay, I'll just disregard everything that I've heard. And I watched it. And I go, this really is just Dances with Wolves in space. This is boring.
Okay, so I'll sum up Avatar real fucking quick. The way that the story arc and the plot line and the characters were all presented and the setting that it's put in, you can already appeal to the sci-fi crowd because there wasn't a lot of decent sci-fi movies at the time it came out. It had probably some of the best CGI for the time when it did come out. It had great designs. It had great visuals. Everything the way it was presented was done really well. The writing was extremely cookie cutter, paint by the numbers, formulaic. It was nothing special. The acting was all right. It was nothing special. The reason that it got so popular all goes down to the way that the movie was presented and the way the plot line was presented is because a bunch of people who want to project a certain ideology onto something, it lent itself very well to that. And I call Avatar the original movie that was pandering without pandering, hence why it became so successful and so popular. You threw enough money at it, you got enough hype behind it, that despite being a mediocre movie at best, there was enough that the access media could latch onto and present it in a certain way that people were going to go see it because, again, they wanted to see what the hype was about. There's no reason it should have been as successful as it should have been.
I didn't think, though, it was preachy at all. It didn't seem.
That's the thing. It wasn't. That's the thing. It wasn't preachy. It's the way that the plot line is presented. Like you're talking about, there's the colonizers, and then there's the environmental message, and how war is bad, and the organic versus the mechanical, and the natives, and all of this. It was something that was very easily had an ideology projected onto it, which the access media could latch onto and then build up hype, and then people wanted to go see it because the access media built up hype, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy of success. Which is, again, why I go back to saying it was the movie that set the standard for being able to pander to something and become successful by putting forth a political message without making a political statement.
Okay, now. I want to ask a couple questions as we wrap up. We went through 50 of the top 50 movies by revenue, not by actually, quality. Is there any movies that you feel, or no, not that you think should be on the list? We'll get to that one next. Any that you were surprised wasn't on the list? Older movies that you think made more money and they should have adjusted for inflation better?
Honestly, I was surprised to see the first Iron Man wasn't on the list.
Dade, how about you? Okay, maybe he had a phone call or something. I'm surprised the classics aren't on there, like Gone with the Wind. I know they removed it from HBO now or Max or whatever the fuck it's called, but still, that movie made a shit ton of money, right? So I'm
also surprised to see. I'm also surprised to see Temple of Doom or Raiders of the Lost Ark or any of the Indiana Jones movies never popped up once.
Yeah, or where's E.T.? Didn't that make a bunch of money, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, E.T. There's a few movies from the 90s I'm surprised didn't show up.
I'm actually surprised the Matrix movies weren't on this list. At least the first one.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I thought it broke records when it came out. It just didn't beat out Titanic, but it got close, I thought.
I think we can all say what's the word? Objectively, not subjectively, that this list was made by people who, well, they're too modern. They're just really too modern.
Yeah, it might just be a cult classic, but Casino or The Godfather keep popping in my head along with Scarface. How are these iconic movies not on the list?
Oh, actually, I just thought of this now, but was there a single Tarantino movie on this list?
No.
Yeah, not Pulp Fiction or nothing, right?
Yeah, no Reservoir Dogs, no Pulp Fiction. Like, really? No not even Inglourious Bastards? I mean, or Kill Bill?
Not even Jackie Brown, one of his lesser known films, or hell, even the Kill Bill series. That's why I said objectively, I think we can all say this list was made by too much modern people. If you were to genuinely adjust everything for inflation to modern day, a lot of these movies that are on here would not be on here.
Well, it does feel like it feels like a list that would have been put together by someone who works within the access media, and they're trying to keep their early access review passes.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me scratch my head a little bit because, again, 50 movies and there's not a single Tarantino one.
Holy shit. No, wait a minute. Think about this. One of the highest paid actors ever, Tom Cruise, love him or hate him, not a single one of his movies were on this list. Not Top Gun, not Days of Thunder, not Mission Impossible, nothing.
Actually, that's a good point as well. And also, there wasn't a single John Carpenter movie on this list, and I know a lot of those, despite being cult classics, still have made a fairly good amount of money.
Do you know what movie should technically be on this list if everything were adjusted for inflation properly? And guarantee it would still be number one is Gone with the Wind because of sheer ticket sales.
Yeah, that you must have stepped away like I thought, right, Doku? I said you must be on the phone or something. I brought up Gone with the Wind. Yeah. Why is that? Or Casablanca?
Yeah, Casablanca. American Beauty wasn't on this list. You would think American Beauty would at least make the top 40.
Yeah, no, in box office, does that count the theaters that cater to the cult crowd and replay old movies? That's still a box office, right?
Well, I think they really go from the initial release.
Oh, okay. So, like, Rocky Horror Picture Show probably made more money than anything on this list if you want to go box office, if you include the replays. Because there's theaters that replay that movie twice a year.
Oh, and also two movies that, because I don't think we saw any horror movies on this list, if I remember correctly, but two movies I know that were wildly successful at the box office that we didn't see on this list were Paranormal Activity and the Blair Witch Project.
Or classics like Psycho.
Yeah, I'm kind of questioning the methodology of this list a little bit.
All right, now, my other question before we get to, well, just my next question. We'll go with that. Okay, is there any movies that probably didn't make that much money at the box office, but you feel are better than any on this list? So let's throw out the ones we think should have been there, like Casino. I mean, come on. And look at something obscure. Like, I'll throw a movie out there. I would love to see at like number 48, 47, Dogma. You know? That's a damn good fucking movie. It's hilarious. That it has a strong following. I mean, I think it should be on the list.
Oh, I'll toss 3 out there for you. Actually, no, 4, because one's a personal favorite. But personal favorite being Event Horizon. I think that's better than a lot of movies on this list. Alien should be on this list. My Cousin Vinny and Happy Gilmore and Predator. Those are movies I think should all be on this list that weren't mentioned.
Any thoughts, Dade?
Not really.
Okay, I would throw a couple more on also, like Twister was really good, and it made actually quite a bit of money. And then something like Fight Club. Or Interview with a Vampire. Why was that not on there?
No,
Right.
yeah, I'll agree with Twister and Fight Club. I think Interview with a Vampire is kind of in the same vein as like Blade Runner. Popular movie, but it is kind of a cult classic.
All right, but we're headed to about 4 hours. So overall, do you guys think the box office numbers reflect truly how good a movie is? Or is it just, you know, all the sheep flood there, even if it's a shitty movie, they could make the list? Which is really, I mean, objectively true. But usually good movies make more money, right? You would
Pre-2000, anything pre-2010, yes. Anything after 2010, questionable.
And also, we didn't see 2001: A Space Odyssey on this list, or Planet of the Apes, or The Time Machine. And we could go on and on about movies that deserve to be on this list. But if we're going to go purely by box office numbers determining whether or not a movie is good or not, I think that's the worst possible metric and the worst possible argument you could make.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, we are approaching 4 hours, and we're kind of in the landing pattern. So, hey, Dade, you said you were going to do book reviews. You want to talk about that and tell everybody what channel that's going to be coming from?
Well, here's the thing. It's not going to be on YouTube ever. YouTube has effectively disenfranchised me with becoming a content creator. I've tried to reach out to Viz Media, who published the books, because, well, they don't own the books and there's not really anything they could do about it except get pissy and say, hey, you're using our material, which I would fight them and win. So it will, when the time comes, when I get to the chance of actually writing a script and rereading all the books and making synopsises, and it's a 12, there's going to be 13 videos. There's going to be a reflective video about the life of the author. And then there are 12 volumes to the book series. And it's technically an unfinished series because this was this gentleman's life work. And he, as people do, you pass away. And it will only be on as a BitChute exclusive if I can ever get BitChute to fucking work. So there's that. It
What
is.
do you need? Sorry to break your stride. What do you need help with on BitChute? I uploaded to it yesterday or the day before.
I think if there's copyright strikes, I've probably bent them out of shape a little bit by uploading movies that I don't have ownership to because they've been blocked in other countries. So, but this being a completely original work will probably not make a difference. It's just that sometimes it just takes forever for BitChute to upload something. But this series of a Japanese manga, which is technically 12 years long, or 12 graphic novels long, and a man's life work, will never be on YouTube unless somebody takes it and throws it on there, because it'll be strictly a BitChute exclusive. And I will always, have it say a BitChute exclusive, and I will always promote it as a BitChute exclusive, mainly because BitChute, thankfully, is not out of America, and their rules on certain things are very lax, and they give you way more flexibility. So that's basically what my 13 video series will be about. I just actually got time to start doing research on the gentleman and his life because he's done so much, and he has his own museum in Japan. And that's all I'm going to tell you.
Okay, that's cool. Doku and I will be doing another episode of our Black Dog series of Vampire the Masquerade, the Montreal stories. It's only downhill from here, right, Doku? Come on, you're another player. You can say it. Tell everybody how we're all gonna be dead next session.
If we make it past the next session and we don't manage to get our characters killed, it'll be surprising because we're, unlike the previous games, the difficulty level has been ramped up, and this is a much darker game, a much more one misstep and your character will die, and the ref is not going to apologize about it. So if you're interested in that, well, tune in on Tuesday and watch us dig our own graves.
Yeah, what's going on is I am recording it. I will upload it to BitChute first. So you can catch it over there at bitchute.com/Mad Dodge Productions. And then I will upload it over here on YouTube right after, with an 18 and only lock on it, because it is a Sabat story, which does get quite dark. And Dade, I heard you try and say something.
Oh, I was thinking of something else. Never mind.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Dade, for coming on. And hey, glad you got a new microphone set up and you're doing your thing over on BitChute. All the, best of luck to you, man. And if you focus only on BitChute, I'm sure you'll do better over there than I have so far, because I don't have very many followers over there. But I have maybe
like 11 or 12 followers. But the thing is, when I first perceived of doing this, buying the equipment of the Knox pop filter, the Blue Yeti, and the arm and everything was basically so I didn't have to depend upon a headset that I had to speak into or would reverberate or couldn't do anything that I wanted to. And I didn't really have, and I've been trying to reach out to people and say, hey, I got this new equipment. Can I get in on a live stream? And you're the only one that responded. And it's kind of like, all right, well, we might touch on some stuff that I really don't want to talk about. But a lot of times when we have our conversations, it's really more along morals and ethics as opposed to straight out politics, because politics don't have either morals or ethics in their nature. And then we usually get to something different to like what we discussed for the last 2 hours. So I said, okay, this will be a great time for me to say, hey, how is my equipment sounding? Do I have it set up? Can you hear me? Is there reverberation? Does it sound this, and whatever. And it's like, everybody's like, oh, it sounds fine. And so then now when I have my setup the way I have, and I also, like I said, I got prior to us going on to the live stream, I got my Tascam TH-03 headphones. So I hear you, I don't hear me. And I know that the voicing is going through the Knox pop filter right to the Blue Yeti, and it sounds balanced out. And of course, anybody would say, hey, you're sounding a little loud. It's like, oh, okay, I better just turn it down. Plus, I also get to do the fun stuff of talk really close to the microphone and then pick on people. And then go back to what I'm doing normally, which is about half a foot away from the microphone. You know, and even if I go out to here, that's about an arm's length. I do want to say this. I know a lot of people to finish my final thoughts on things. Not only thank you for having me on, but Doku, it's been a long time since we've talked. Good to hear you again. You know, I've been watching Stargirl on the CW, and I think that so far succeeds everywhere Batwoman has failed, because they're working with a character, and the person that is writing the scripts and doing the executive production is Jeff Johns, who helped create the character. So it's his work. And they're only about 4 episodes in. If you can find a copy of Stargirl episodes 1 through 4, give it a watch, because I think it's pretty darn decent so far. It's got Amy Smart and Luke Wilson. And Luke Wilson is probably one of the better parts of the show. And I think they've explained a lot of things, very well. They do a little bit of backstory. And I had one guy bitch at me on Twitter, well, they made Wildcat a girl. And I said, well, if you knew anything about comics, Yolanda was the second Wildcat from Crisis on Infinite Earths, and she'd been Wildcat for a long time to modern, to Bronze Age to modern readers. And there's nothing fucking wrong with Latino teenage girl in this universe, which, by the way, stands outside of the Arrowverse on a parallel Earth, thankfully. And she's just fine. These characters are not being feminized. They're not disrespecting the originals. And they're following comic book history a shit ton closer than a lot of the Arrowverse stuff is. So give Stargirl a chance. It's pretty darn decent. That's all I got to say.
I actually have to put that on my list. So Stargirl, I'll see if I can find it.
All right, Doku, any last thoughts on anything we covered tonight? Movies or the shit show in Seattle? I like that, the triple S, shit show Seattle.
And movies, I think we covered in pretty acute detail, so nothing on that end. I will be curious with everything going on in Seattle and Portland and potentially other cities as the days and weeks progress. I want to see if any of my predictions are proven correct about trying to put the federal government or the people engaging in these activities. I want to see if they actually do end up putting somebody into a corner, and seeing how not only the federal government but state and local governments react, and then by extension how the populace reacts in kind, one or the other. But I agree with Bear Dog when she was on earlier. Don't make yourself an enemy of the state. It's not a fight you're going to win. And I hope this doesn't continue to any further extreme, because I do think we're at that point where if things do go on any longer, or if they escalate any further, no one's going to be happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we'll be back to the history stream this weekend as well. And I might get another Redeye out there. But my daughter's birthday is Saturday, so I might be kicking around on
Happy birthday, young lady.
But other than that, I'm not doing a stream. But oh no, she's not here right now. She's out with her friend. But yeah, she's turning 13. Yay.
Oh yeah, danger, Lana. What? Danger zone. That's all I'm saying. I have 2 daughters and I have 2 stepdaughters, and you're gonna say Lana a lot.
But yeah, good night, everybody, and remember, you're all just a bunch of space monkeys. We're out of here. And